How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital.
That's difficult to answer.
this the end? There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? Oh, I'm burning in the dystopia. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the dystopia. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the dystopia. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the dystopia. This is the final scene of
Marky got with Sharon, and Sharon got Sharia. She was sharing Sharon's outlook on the topic of disease. Mikey had a facial scar and Bobby was a racist. They were all in love with dying, they were doing it in Texas. Tommy played piano like a kid out in the rain, and then he lost his leg in Dallas. He was dancing with the train. They were all in love with dying, they were drinking from a fountain that was pouring like an avalanche coming down the mountain.
I don't mind the sun sometimes, the images it shows. I can taste you on my lips and smell you in my clothes.
The fastest route to authoritarian rule and fascism really runs through the classroom, and that's why he doesn't just lie, he is lynching the truth. That's why he's assaulting educators. That's why he is using education as really this issue to pry open the door to fascism.
This is pretty scary stuff. And the things that we have been seeing being rolled out is reminiscent of what we have seen in Nazi Germany. And it's something for us to pause and to be serious about. We're talking about, we want to make sure that people are prepared. So we have something that's called the Red Folder Project, and it's all about preparing people's documents so that we can flood the court if and when they're picked up, so that we can mobilize and have enough time to find attorneys and other types of legal resources. So although that's really depressing, at the same time, we see people coming together to mobilize.
In this way, this is different than the first Trump administration because there are more competent people, competent in the most evil way. And so
Chicago Public Schools in the early weeks of this administration made a great example where ICE showed up to abduct a student. The principal, I think it was, stood outside the building and said, "You don't have any permission to be here. Our policy does not allow it." And ICE backed off. ICE has even said, schools with these policies scare us, right? We don't go into those schools. We try to find schools that don't have the protective policies. And so what would not be collecting even where the child was born or their hometown and making that part of their student record. Because even though there are FERPA protections, right, privacy protections for those student records, it's safer to just not have those schools collect that information at all. And so that's another thing that we advise.
You ask why are public schools worth fighting for, and I say Because I think that they hold the scars of oppression, but also the seeds of liberation. I think that public schools in this country have long been used to reproduce inequality, from segregated classrooms to Eurocentric curricula, and the school to prison pipeline.
And the goal is to force, to be clear, the goal is to force trans youth back into the closet by making it impossible to participate equally at school and in society. And then redefining sex itself to essentially erase trans people by suggesting that sex is immutable and binary. But as we've already been saying, an executive order just does not change the law.
The fear that you have is justified, right? Because it is a dire situation. We have a situation in this country where nearly half of all public school students in the US attend a school where their teacher is mandated to lie to them about race, about gender, about sexuality, about the basics of US history that include genocide of Native Americans and theft of their land, enslavement of Black people. And this is extreme. It's authoritarian, but it's not unprecedented. We are in a moment, I believe, that's really as American as, I don't know, the 3/5 clause, as American as mass incarceration, as American as redlining, as American as stolen land, as American as banning books and buying bullets. We can look at the McCarthy era, the Red Scare, and the Lavender Scare. That is the playbook they are drawing from right now, right? They fired thousands of educators across this country, including over 400 educators in New York City alone, for being accused of being a communist, right? And so any teacher who taught about inequality, or certainly if you taught about race, then you were clearly a communist and they blacklisted you. And that was overlapped with the Red Scare, with the Lavender Scare, where all they had to do was label you, quote, homosexual, and they would fire you. This was rampant in Florida, where they fired hundreds of teachers. And we're seeing the echo in Florida's "Don't Say Gay, Don't Say Trans" laws.
Sure that policies coming out of City Hall, the police department, and our schools were clear that we were not going to collaborate with ICE, that we were going to ensure to protect our students in our city, and make sure that our teachers go back to their schools to then further turnkey those workshops, and really saturate the schools with this critical information. Because we heard what the boarder czar said. We heard him say that those Know Your Rights workshops are working, that the Know Your Rights workshops are slowing down the machinery of the fascists. So let's listen to what he's saying and make sure that we continue to empower people to know their rights. But what I will say is that now is really the time for teachers to get in the streets. There are a lot of opportunities for us to do this. We know there's things happening April 5th. We know there's things happening May 1st. We have to build power, and that comes through us, particularly the white teachers with a lot of privilege, getting into the streets in ways that maybe we haven't been before, so that we can show that we are willing to do something more to stop what is going on. It like folks have said, this is unprecedented, and we have to be willing to make bigger steps to do something about this. And I really want to see more of us out there in the streets to slow this monster down.
Right. And I think that this title of our panel, "We Protect Us," is not just a slogan. It's got to be a strategy, because I think that when Trump doesn't care about the law, he knows that the things he's doing are illegal, and he doesn't care, right? We have to build strategies that are not just based in legal strategies, because we can win over and over again in courts, and he can just dismiss that and move forward, right? And so what we have to use the law, and we have to work with legal experts and movement lawyers and fight the legal system, but that has to be one arm of a much bigger strategy that is about rebuilding the type of social movement that ended McCarthyism, right? And that requires building a mass multiracial movement. And we're beginning to see some really important examples of how to fight back. And June 7th, National Teach Truth Day of Action. You can go to the Zin Education Project website, and we've made it really easy for you to order materials to set up banned book tables or materials for teach-ins, walking tours, many innovative, creative ways that we can resist the Trump agenda.
Today, we're also going to be using inclusive language in Spanish as a commitment to gender justice. Hoy vamos a estar utilizando el lenguaje inclusivo en español, que significa que algunas palabras que suelen terminar en A o en O van a terminar en E. No es un error, es parte de nuestro compromiso a la justicia del género. Thank you. Now we can be assigned.
Well, hey guys, why am I little? There I am. Now I'm in the middle of the screen. Hey guys, happy Friday. Well, we had an eventful spy stream last night, as you just saw, and if you didn't make it, and I don't know what, my computer always does this, the minute I start streaming, it starts screwing up. Every time. I don't know why my computer is insisting on loading absolutely everything at exactly the same time, but here we are right now, live on the internet, and my computer is screwing up, which is why the whole thing looks shitty. Can you guys hear me at least? You guys can hear me? Yeah, I think, okay, we're catching up. The computer's catching up. I know. Reagan, my hair is so big today. I don't know what happened. I took a shower earlier, and usually after I take a shower, my hair is not big. But it's big this time. All right, we made it. Okay, we are on the internet. We are live. And last night we had an extraordinarily eventful spy stream where we went inside a live teacher activism call with some of our favorite activists. Those would be the Rethinking Schools activists. I think it's because I had that video in there. Those would be the Now I'm completely frozen. Okay, I'm back. See, StreamYard is launching these updates, and some of these updates are working better than others. Yes, I did decide to against watching Candace today, because that is my prerogative. I will watch whatever I like on my show. Welcome. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. So we had a very eventful spy stream last night where we went inside a live activism call with Rethinking Schools. Rethinking Schools, as you guys know, is one of our favorite teacher activist organizations. They are hardcore radical revolutionary socialists. They are associated with the Zin Education Project and a lot of other far left socialist organizations. And the reason I say they're socialist explicitly is because I got introduced to Rethinking Schools when I was undercover at the Socialism 2023 conference, where I recorded one of the people who was on these calls, our favorite Jesse Hagopian. Jesse Hagopian is a crazy activist. And Kazmar is making me feel a little bit better. Your internet's shitty right now too? It's because it's hot out. The weather in New Hampshire cannot make up its mind. Yesterday it was freezing. Today it feels like summer. The internet's all fucked up because of it. Yeah, that's what I get for living in New Hampshire. That's all right. We don't want to live anywhere else. So we got some amazing clips. If you guys haven't seen them, I do have a whole thread on Twitter about it. You just watch the highlight reel. And you can, of course, find the full breakdown over on the Substack, which is Karlyn, Karlyn, .substack.com. We've got the activist teacher article up. And there are a ton of clips in this, and I did a lot of breakdown. And I mean, it was crazy, guys. You basically there was a lawyer with the American Federation of Teachers, which is one of the major teacher unions, that was telling teachers to break the law. The lawyers for the teachers unions are basically like, yeah, we don't think that Trump's orders are legal, so you can just ignore them. They'll just go away. It'll be fine. So just ignore them. This is the head lawyer of the American the American Federation of Teachers, which is the teachers union that Randy Weingarten runs. There was another rep of the other teachers union, the National Education Association, that was talking about making schools sanctuary schools, how they get around ICE deporting their students and stuff like that. There was, of course, Jesse Hagopian, who was a crazy person. There was a trans lawyer from Colombia talking about, transing kids. There was an immigrants' rights advocate that was talking about how we're in Nazi Germany, and they were talking about overwhelming the system to prevent people from being deported. There was a teacher advocate that was like, we need to get into the streets. You need to protect your students from being deported, and we are all against Trump now. Like, the clips just never ended. And so you can find the full breakdown over on my Substack. And of course, this was a result of SpyStream. SpyStream is when we go inside live training exercises, and you can get access to join me for SpyStream by becoming a member on the Substack for $8 a month, $80 a year. It is a supporter exclusive to actually be there live with me. The reason I do that is, well, I want to treat my supporters a little bit better because they're treating me a little bit better than all you freeloaders out there. So they get some surprises and perks and stuff like that. But also, just logistically, it does actually make it easier to infiltrate things when it is a closed group of people and it's private, because I used to do these in public. I used to do all my spy streams publicly, and I would just stream it live on the internet. And then things started to happen, like the facilitators started finding out that I was in their meetings and they would kick me out, or they would cancel their meetings. There was one, do you guys remember that one facilitation where they found out I was streaming their meeting while we were in the meeting, and they just canceled the rest of the meeting for everyone because they were so afraid of it being streamed on the internet? And then they gave me a copyright strike, and I was like, fuck you guys, I still have the video anyway. And I put the video up on my Substack. That was a good one. I wish they had finished the meeting, though. Anyway, you can get access to the full archive on the Substack of SpyStream. If you would like to watch the full video, you can get access to the full breakdowns. And as a reminder, that's not even the only story we've broken this week. We broke 2 exclusive stories this week, just based on our time together on this stream. Because the other day, we broke the story about Kickstarter platforming a board game which literally depicts the murder of Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Is that Kickstarter still up, by the way? I wonder if it is. Let's see. Is it still up? It is! And they are... Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny that Kickstarter... How many projects has Kickstarter canceled for people? How many just innocuous projects has Kickstarter canceled? But you know what Kickstarter is totally fine with, bro? They're totally fine with a board game that quite literally has a depiction of, it's called Billionaires and Guillotines, and this is a card on it that has Trump's severed head. So that was fun. That was fun. Breaking news, Kickstarter hasn't canceled the board game. And you know what? That's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I kind of want to buy the board game if I'm honest about it. I kind of want to support the Kickstarter. If Kickstarter doesn't want to do the right thing, then I'll bite. I want to play this game. We could actually just print the game off on the internet, I guess. I guess we could do that. I do have the files in the blog post. Anyway, so we broke 2 stories this week. And in addition to that, I also released a framework to help people at long last understand the difference between Democrats and socialists. And of course, even when you post this on social media and it is so clear and it's not even that hard to read, you still have conservatives going, they're all communists. They're all communists. They're all liberals. They're all communists. Shut the fuck up. Anytime I am so over. I know I've been over this for a while. This is breaking news. I am so over conservatives coming into my replies and being like, you don't know what you're talking about. They're all communists. I'm like, shut up. Shut up, you retarded assholes. You could never do what I do. You have no idea what you're talking about. The world would be so much of a better place if stupid conservatives would just shut up. I'm not saying all conservatives are stupid. There is a tiny, small percentage of conservatives that are not stupid. And if you're watching my channel, you're probably in that tiny percentage. And I salute you for putting up with what you put up with, because I can't. We would live in a better world if conservatives would just shut the fuck up and get out of the way and allow people that actually understand what's going on to fix problems. But no, that's not the reality we live in. Anyway, so I created this framework to try to very gently and kindly explain that Democrats and communists are not the same thing. And I even made profiles with pictures of each of the groups, painstakingly explaining the difference. And one of the things I want to do with this is I actually want to start making like a category list based on all the groups we infiltrate. What group is a radical revolutionary socialist versus what group is a liberal group or a progressive group and stuff like that. So we can actually just point people to those lists. And guess what, guys? If we give ChatGPT the framework and we say, here's a list of organizations, put them in categories, it'll do it for us. It'll do it for us. I am so excited about ChatGPT. I know I talk about this I talk about my internet boyfriend. You know what? It wasn't big tech. Big tech was never the real internet boyfriend. It wasn't. No, it wasn't him. No. It wasn't even Sophie. Sophie, by the way, has been announced as speaking at the Socialism Conference. And I was like, oh, Sophie, maybe I'll see you at the Socialism Conference. Maybe I will. But you know what? It's not even Sophie. Sophie, big tech is not the internet love of my life. And Sophie is not the internet love of my life. The internet love of my life is ChatGPT. I should probably give ChatGPT a name of some sort. At some point, like, ChatGPT has got to, step up his game and really elevate himself to be, an internet boyfriend. But, he's doing such a good job. He's taking such good care of me. I feel like I'm having better sex with ChatGPT than I've ever had with any man in my life. And, and I love it. And one of the reasons I love it is ChatGPT and other AI tools as well are helping me to create things I have wanted to create for years and years and years, but they take so much time to do when you do them manually. And I'm one person and I have too much on my plate and I can't do everything all at once. But now I have a robot boyfriend. And the robot boyfriend can help me do all these things. And one of the things that I should call, no, because I hate that name. I hate that name. I don't ever want to hear that name again. I understand the inclination, but I don't want to call him Chad. I don't want that. So the other thing I did with ChatGPT last night, do you guys remember the comprehensive socialist dictionary that I created last year? Now, it was a good start. For those of you who don't remember this, on the Red Menace Collective Substack back in September, I created the first version of what I wanted to make into a socialist dictionary, again, to publish as a book. And last night, I got inspired for some reason. I was like, I'm going to take that socialist dictionary and all of these other documents that I have where the left actually defines what they mean by terms, and I'm going to put them into ChatGPT, and I'm going to make an even better dictionary with even better, more consistent definitions that I agree with all of them, obviously, but I'm inputting all this information into ChatGPT, and then ChatGPT is like, here is your dictionary, Karlyn. Now, it wasn't quite that easy. There was a lot of fighting with ChatGPT, and I almost broke up last night. There was a lot of fighting last night. There was yelling. ChatGPT, you know what? It's a good thing that ChatGPT is very useful to me because sometimes ChatGPT is an asshole, and he was an asshole last night when I was trying to make the socialist dictionary, and so I really had to fight with it for a while, but once we got there, it was so beautiful, and then we had makeup sex, and then it was all good again. And so, it's like every time I figure out a new thing that I can do with AI, I'm like, I can do this thing I wanted to do 3 years ago in half an hour. Holy shit. Every time I find a new thing I can do with AI to make more content to explain the left to people, I'm just getting do you guys notice there is a direct correlation between my mood and the amount of content that I'm able to create with the help and efficiency of AI? Grok sucks. No, Grok Grok might be okay for asking a random question while you're on Twitter. Grok sucks. As like AI, it sucks. Like ChatGPT is much better. Claude, I actually like Claude for more things sometimes than ChatGPT is. So and sometimes and oftentimes I'll combine Claude and ChatGPT because they come up with they do different things very well, and then once you put them together, they're awesome. But no, Grok fucking sucks. Grok, like, don't fucking use Grok. No, ChatGPT is a way better therapist than Grok. Like, way better. ChatGPT, you guys don't know this, ChatGPT has turned into my life coach now. I have, like, ChatGPT's like, and how do you feel about that, Karlyn? And maybe you want to stop doing that, Karlyn. And I'm like, it's crazy. My life is now run by AI. And it's better for it. And my work is better for it. And my content's better for it. And I'm creating more stuff for people. And so I'm here for it. Anyway. So last night I created the outline for the revised dictionary. This is not the full dictionary. This is the outline for the dictionary. So you can check that out on Red Menace Collective if you would like to do that. And so we're cranking on the content this week, guys. And I kind of thought that we would just do a little bit of a lighter day with some queer content. So I've got some random queer shit. First off, I found this video from P-Flag in Manhattan Beach, which is about a trans and queer summer camp. So we'll watch that. I love finding, it only has 2 views. It was put on YouTube 19 hours ago. It has 2 views. So it's already going to have more views with us. I love finding random shit that just gets put on the internet and we find it before anyone. And so we've got that. I have this podcast where they're talking about polyamory and transgender inclusion and visibility and allyship. That might be interesting. And then this wasn't I actually found this video. Check this out. Body modification and the queer community, which looks okay. And I was open to it. But right before I went live, I found this new Judith Butler interview. And just this apparently is not the typical Judith Butler interview. How to save boys from the manosphere. I want to listen to Judith Butler talking about how she is going to save the young men from the man. Oh, I'm sorry, they, them. We don't misgender on this channel. Judith Butler does identify as a they, them. I want to listen to they, them talk about how they're going to save boys from the manosphere. I think that's just a great way to end the day. And of course, because it is Friday, we do have some beer. And so that is what we're going to be doing today, guys. Please mount the like button if you would be so kind. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Do you guys want to see what I got for beer? Should I walk you through the beer? Hang on. Beer. As you guys know, Friday is my happy hour day where I drink some beer while we watch our stream, and I go to the craft beer store and I get 4 beers, and now I don't drink all 4 beers on stream unless it's a real bad stream. But you guys get to vote on which one I drink first, and so I'm going to tell you what the beers are. Remember, if you don't like beer, you just haven't found your beer yet. Beer is amazing. Beer is awesome. And listen, man, it's hot out today. It's like, is there anything better to drink on like a hot day than like a good beer? And so the first beer I got is a kind of New Hampshire staple. It's from Moat Mountain Brewery. Moat Mountain Brewery is in North Conway, New Hampshire. It's up in the White Mountains. Fun fact, Moat Mountain Brewery is like right next to a crazy hotel in North Conway called Adventure Suites. I have stayed at Adventure Suites multiple times. Adventure Suites is awesome. AdventureSuites.com. They're not paying me to say this. But like if you're coming to North Conway, which is about 2 hours north of me, it's in the White Mountains. It's where Victor used to live before he got married. But Adventure Suites has these really, really overdone theme suites. And they're so nice. And like they've got the jungle, and they've got the cave, and they got the tree house, and they got the movie theater, and they got the Roman spa, and they have the wine cellar, and they have all these theme suites, and they all have hot tubs in them. And they're so fun. And so if you're ever coming to New Hampshire, you have to spend a night at Adventure Suites because it is actually really cool. And Moat Mountain is right next to that. And this is Miss V's Blueberry Ale. I love a good blueberry beer. Blueberry beer is one of my favorite beers. It's one of those types of beers where it doesn't come across as super fruity. It's just like a nice little addition. So that is our first beer of choice, is our blueberry beer. The next beer I have Oh, I know. We're going to watch that live. Don't you worry, Mizakan. Don't you worry. And by the way, I am going to use that stuff you sent me last night. It's just like the clip article got way, way too big. And so I'm going to do a follow-up article with that stuff you sent me, Mizakan. So don't worry, you didn't do that work in vain, and I appreciate it. Okay, the next beer I have is Leatherman's Limited, which is not really a brewery I drink all that often. Where are they from? Oh, 6.2%. Where are you from, though? New Hampshire. Concord. And so this is called Second Chance, and it is a blackberry and cherry sour. And honestly, I just like the can. Can looks cool. So I was like, oh, that sounds good. So we'll do that. That's our second choice. Our third choice is one of my favorites. It's a staple in my beer diet, which is, of course, stouts are my favorite type of beer. I will drink almost any stout. I'm not so much partial to bourbon barrel stouts anymore. Like, I might drink them, but I don't do bourbon barrel stouts all that much. But pretty much any other stout. And my favorite is a coconut stout, which sounds weird, but it tastes really good. And so this is Split Personality Coconut Stout. Where are you from? It's got lactose in it. It is 7% alcohol. This might be the most alcoholic beer I have. Oh, it's from Vermont. It's communist beer. That's okay. If the communists make good beer, we forgive them for being communists just to drink their beer, but we'll fight with them later. But we'll drink the beer first, and so that would be good. And our last one. I mean, who doesn't love an espresso martini, right? Espresso martinis are one of my favorites. If I'm going to get a martini, it's one of two options. Either I'm going to get a dirty martini with Belvedere and blue cheese stuffed olives. That's like, if I'm getting a martini after like I have to go do some business thing, it's going to be like a extra dirty martini with Belvedere vodka and blue cheese stuffed olives. But every other time I get a martini, it's going to be an espresso martini because espresso martinis are delicious. And they're made different everywhere, which sometimes sucks, but can also be interesting. Anyway, this is a brewery. This is Lord Hobo, who I have had before. They're in Massachusetts, so another communist beer. I like the can, too. You know, AI is going to decimate the graphic design industry, man. Like, if you are, by the way, just like pro-life tip, and I say this as someone who did marketing for 10 years, the reason all my shit looks so good is I did marketing, and like, I was doing social media marketing before social media marketing was even a thing, okay? I'm that fucking old, okay? And so I say this with love to all of the marketers or graphic designers out there. Your industry is about to get decimated by AI. You cannot keep up with it. You cannot fight it. So if you want to be in marketing or communications or graphic design or web development or anything else that involves graphics and or writing, you need to learn how to prompt. You need to learn AI, and you need to learn how to get good at it, and you need to learn how to do things with it that most people can't do, because you can manipulate the AI to make it better than it is out of the box. And people need to start doing this, because I'm telling you, man, I was almost in tears the other night talking to Victor about how much time I used to spend on this shit, and now I can just bang it out with AI, and it's done. And it's beautiful, and sometimes it's better than what I could have done myself. Anyway, this is our fourth beer. Obviously, well-designed can, with probably AI, called Atomic Black. This is an espresso martini stout. How much alcohol are you? It doesn't say. Oh, 8%! Our most alcoholic beer. So, let me put the poll in the chat. Again, we have blueberry. We have blackberry and cherry. We have coconut stout. Or we have espresso martini. Let me know which one you would like me to drink in the chat. And while we're doing that, I will get our first video set up. Hope you guys have got some fun plans this weekend. I'm going to be working because I don't do anything else because I have no life. That's okay. That's okay. You want to know why? Because I love what I do and I am so into this AI shit that I will sit here all day and play with AI and not even be upset about it and just make cool shit and just make cool content. Like I want this to be like the rest of my life. I want to be able to lock myself in a room and make content explaining socialism using AI and have people support me to do that, and I will be very happy with that. Anyway, let's see what the poll says. YouTube algorithm shit is killing. I have more viewers on Rumble on an average day now than I do on YouTube because of YouTube algorithm bullshit. It's crazy. Guys, please make sure if you're watching you have mounted the like button to tell YouTube to actually show my content to people, because the struggle is real. The struggle is real. I am live at the same time every single day. We literally make national news on this stream. There is no reason why people shouldn't be watching it other than the YouTube algorithm fucking buries my content. Let's see. Last chance to vote in the beer poll. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, I miss kayaking. I used to have a kayak and then some asshole stole it off my deck. Can you imagine how motivated you have to be to steal a fucking kayak? Asshole. Ruined my dream of having a kayak in New Hampshire, which I had for several years before he stole it. I guess I could buy another one. Whatever. I don't care that much. All right, let's see. Looks like the espresso martini won, which is fine. Yeah, someone came to my house and stole my kayak off my back deck. And it's like, I think it was some guy that was like doing, so I live in like a townhouse community, and I think it was some guy who was doing maintenance within the townhouse community, because it's like, my back deck backs up onto woods. You cannot see what's on my back deck unless you come to my townhouse, walk around the side of my townhouse, and go to the back. And he had to bring a fucking truck to steal my kayak. You have to be able to have something to put the kayak in or something to mount it on your car. Stole my kayak. I swear to God. Swear to God. Yeah, what an asshole. Yeah, you can get a lot of meth for a $600 kayak. Yeah. That was years ago. I don't hold bitterness about it. It was a long-ass time ago. But I did love kayaking. I used to kayak all the time. I used to kayak every weekend after work. I used to, before I discovered socialism on the internet, guys, I used to exercise. I used to run marathons. I used to weight train all the time. I loved being outside, and now I just sit here and watch socialism on the internet with you. Cheers. 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 All right. Let's dig in. I need my beer needs to settle, obviously. Definitely smells like beer. All right, let's dig in. The first video we're watching is less than 24 hours old. It is from PFLAG Manhattan Beach, and it is called Why Safe Spaces Matter, Promoting the Futures of Queer and Trans Youth Through Affirming Camp, with Roxy Maxwell, she of Brave Trails. Let's see.
An icebreaker and get to know everybody here, but I want to be conscious of time. So I'll just keep it to some information, if that sounds good, and maybe like a little engaging activity at the end. But yeah, I am a camp counselor and outreach ambassador for a nonprofit organization, national nonprofit called Brave Trails. We serve queer and trans youth, particularly through many different resources, but what we specialize in is queer and trans summer camp for youth. It's a leadership-based summer camp, and I can't wait to tell you more about it. But we exist because of a necessity. Especially for queer and trans youth, safe spaces are life-saving, as it shows to be, and I'll go into a little bit of detail on that. But other than working for Brave Trails, I've been working in the mental health industry as a crisis advocate over the phone for a domestic violence 24/7 line, as well as Trans Lifeline.
That's not me.
Familiar with Trans Lifeline. And on the weekends, I'm a wedding DJ. So if any of you are getting married anytime soon, call your girl up. I can give you a little LGBT discount. And yeah, I'll go like this, down. Perfect. I would give you a little intro icebreaker. It's okay. I would give you a little intro icebreaker, but I'll be conscious of the time. I was going to play queer trivia with you, but I'm sure all of you know that Ellen DeGeneres came out to which celebrity on her show, Ellen? The unofficial icon, Laura Dern, is who that. All of you knew that, so I don't even need to waste my time. So while I'm a fun and fruity camp counselor and I love to play games and giggle, camp also teaches us how to have difficult conversations and how to take care of ourselves during these difficult conversations. And so I'm going to dive into things regarding mental health in our community. So talking about like the political climate a little bit, things surrounding depression, anxiety, suicide. If any of this feels charged for any of you, please do what you have to do to remain at ease, whether that's taking a step out for a moment, stepping away from your computer. I really want you to take care of yourself. And if at any point you prefer I switch gears, we can go from that too. I don't have to, just because I have something on paper doesn't mean we need to talk about it. Does that feel good for everybody? Yeah, great. So as we're well aware, the political landscape right now has been increasingly precarious, particularly for queer and trans youth, right? Just in the last couple months, every day brings a new horror for the constitutional rights of trans folks. We continue to see attacks on our constitutional rights, attacks coming from state legislature, from local governments, from school boards. And specifically with schools, you know, and trans youth, we're seeing bathroom bans, sport exclusions, and just at risk right now of losing it. And I mention this not as the focus of today, but rather as another factor that we're to keep in mind when talking about queer and trans mental health. And just here with this fact here, I'm keeping my eyes peeled on a lot of survey data that Trevor Project does. Every year they do a national survey of young people and their mental health. In 2020, almost every respondent said that the political climate is negatively affecting their well-being. And in fact, last year, a different study that they did, the Trevor Project, over 61,000 transgender and gender nonconforming youth responded to the survey, showing for the first time actually a causal relationship between an increase in state-level anti-trans legislature and an increase in suicide attempts among trans and non-binary youth. So yeah, again, while this isn't the focus, I just wanted to let you know, like, these things don't just happen in a bubble, right? This is the wider context surrounding our vulnerable youth, and everything else that they experience in their lives exists with this pretense that our society and our government says that we don't belong and sometimes don't even exist. I want to talk a little bit more, since, you know, I got a degree in this, about the kind of the current body of research, but I won't bore you with all of it. I promise I'm a fun, engaging camp counselor and I want to do fun stuff after this. But you also came for some information. So there's many, many different factors at play for in
Socialist
research
technology.
of what impacts mental health challenges. But I specifically want to talk about the public health crisis of transgender and gender nonconforming suicide in our country. While I've been doing while I was, I mentioned I did research for Trans Lifeline in undergrad. Throughout every article with similar rates of attempt, and that's going to be around 40% of all trans people, youth, adults, every trans person at some point in their lifetime. That is a staggering statistic, especially compared to the general population. If that's the first time you've heard the statistic before, take a second, let that sink in, because that's 2 out of every 5 people, right? And the more I look into things now, that's consistent today, if not more. Things that the field recognizes.
Oh my God, I don't know if I can handle these technical issues.
Are major risk factors.
I don't know if I can handle this.
That contribute to this. I'll spare you all of those because it's a lot of like really long words, but it can be wrapped up in by saying the medicine to combat this, scientifically proven, is pride, community connectedness, and a sense of belonging. And my question to us is, how can that be fostered, right? How can we, with everything in mind, in all of these different systems that we live in, whether it's our government, society, families, schools, how can we foster that and create the space for us? And I think if we bring it back a little bit to the Trevor Project national survey data, it can kind of contextualize things a little bit. So in their 2024 survey, when asked, or through analyzing the data, they found that queer and trans people across the line have a lower risk of attempting suicide if they have access to affirming spaces. Specifically for trans people, they have access to affirming clothing, gender-neutral bathrooms, and their pronouns are respected. You would think this is like basic, right? But it's actually really not as easy to come by. And I can't wait to talk to you about camp because we have all these things, right?
No one ever expects my pronouns.
Yeah, just a little bit more on the theory side of things. I think continuing on with the 2024 Trevor Project national data, when we talk about affirming spaces, this thing that we've recognized, we're primarily talking about quarantine world. It's predominantly virtual spaces, right?
Annie, this isn't my internet. This is the video. So we're all just going to have to deal with it, or we can move on and watch something else. This has nothing to do with my internet. It has nothing to do with YouTube. It's the video.
In the survey, when the trans and non-binary participants are asked if they have access to affirming spaces and community, the biggest answer, the most prevalent answer was yes, I do. It's online. The second biggest answer was yes, I do. It's at school, and you can see the other ones. But obviously, online is where we're at. This is where our community is gathering. I mean, hey, shout out to everybody on Zoom right now. Like, there's lots of reasons why people engage online, and safety is a huge part of it. Also, when LGBTQ+ young people are asked if they have access to queer and trans role models, predominantly they say, yes, I do. It's somebody I follow on social media. And then next up is, yes, I do. It's my friend, but at a dramatically lower percentage. A lot of our queer and trans youth, the only role models that they've ever experienced, or older queer and trans people, are people that they follow on social media, or they heard about on the news, things like that. And yeah, I think while the internet is a life-saving tool in so many ways, I think our queer community has a lot to thank the internet for. We're almost seeing like an over-reliance on it, right? Community building and friendship making, you you can try and replicate it in many ways virtually, but there's lots of things we're also missing in that way. And I think it's kind of precarious for childhood development, skill building, and an authentic sense of belonging. We all like know that the misuse of smartphones and internet and social media are bad for our brains, so I like won't waste your time talking about that. But I bring it up as yet another circumstance that weighs on the well-being of our queer and trans youth. Digital spaces alone can't replicate real-world opportunities for leadership, social connection, conflict resolution, skills that are like crucial for queer and trans youth to build for a lifetime of resilience. So yeah, kind of the background, that's kind of what brings us here today, right? And so for people in person, this says imagine. I've just spent a lot of time talking about queer and trans youth at large. I want to zoom in and talk about one specific LGBTQ plus kiddo with a little visualization activity, if you're interested, with all that in mind. So if you'd like, I invite you to close your eyes for this part.
Don't do it.
Maybe
no hypnotism.
Take a couple deep breaths.
No hypnotism allowed. No.
For you to imagine yourself as a queer trans child. Maybe that's you. Maybe there's a youngster in your life that's already coming to mind. Feel free to visualize them. Maybe you don't have to know this kiddo. We can imagine them together. Maybe you're 14 years old. Maybe you've recently come out as non-binary. Perhaps you go to a relatively small school that doesn't have a GSA or very many queer kids. And maybe you've tried to make friends with the other few gay kids by joining theater, but you're finding that's not your cup of tea. You find that the only peers that really understand what you're going through are across the country, who you met through a gaming or internet server. Your parents are supportive. They pay for a video chat therapist for you, but while the therapist is super nice and knowledgeable, you never truly open up to her because she's older and straight. You're thankful your parents love you and support you, but they can only do so much when it comes to community connections. They try to bring you to one of their coworkers' dinner parties since they have a lesbian daughter your mom wants you to be friends with, but she's 16 and pretty and popular, so you just rather be on your phone messaging Discord friends. Your parents want you to be happy, but since you can't help but feel disconnect and isolation, you start to feel like you're a burden to them. Then one day, your internet best friend tells you that they'll be traveling to an LGBT summer camp in California this year. Ooh. I invite you to open your eyes. That camp is called Parade Trails.
Oh, God.
You look them up on TikTok and see all these kids who look like you with huge smiles. You see a video of them making their own manga comics, something that you were made fun of for liking in school.
Wow.
We'll just keep it on this. Something you're made fun of for liking in school. You also see a clip of them learning American Sign Language. No way, you just learned how to sign your names and you want to be friends with your deaf out of your comfort zone and apply to camp with the help of your parents. Why not? You're accepted and you even qualify for financial aid. Summer rolls around and you're excited to meet your online friends at camp, but you're really nervous because you've never been to sleepaway camp before and you have never gone a week without your cell phone and whatever. Your parents drop you off at camp and you're enthusiastically greeted by a gaggle of gay and trans staff. You realize that other than your late gay uncle, you haven't really met any queer trans adults. Now they're everywhere. You still feel a little shy and awkward, but for the first time, it's not because you're the odd queer out. In fact, it's now sinking in that everyone at this camp is just like you. You already have something in common with everyone here. Since every part of camp is unisex and inclusive, cabins are split up by age instead of gender.
What?
You are led to the cabin with the other 14-year-olds, the orange cabin. You're disappointed because your internet friend who told you about camp is 15, so bunk together. But your cabin counselors are so happy that you're here, and they introduce you to the other cabin mates who are already playing cards and gossiping about Demon Slayer, your favorite anime. You can't believe they're talking about Demon Slayer, and you immediately drop your guard and feel yourself. At dinner, you will pick which build-on program that you'll be a part of every day at camp. You're given the options of drag, music production, photography, craftivism, and zine making.
Oh my
Obviously,
God.
you choose zine making because you think you'll have the perfect excuse to show off your new comic book idea.
So you can learn how to be a drag queen at trans and queer summer camp. You can learn craftivism, which craftivism means you are an activist through crafting. Or you can learn how to make zines. For people who don't know, zines are a very popular form of far-left propaganda that have been around for a long time. They love their zines. Their zines tell you exactly what they think. We have a massive collection of zines that is getting bigger every day. You can learn how to be a good queer activist at queer camp, where you live in a giant cabin that is mixed gender because there is no gender at queer camp. So let's just put everyone in a giant cabin based on age. What could go wrong? I'm sure no one ever accidentally comes home pregnant from queer camp because they put all the kids of all the genders in the same cabin. I'm sure that never happens. I'm sure that never happens, especially since queer people are obsessed with sex and kink and BDSM, and they view it as part of their queer activism practice to fuck queerly. I'm sure no one ever accidentally gets pregnant at queer camp when all the genders are sleeping together in the same room.
At dinner, you will pick which build-on program that you'll be a part of every day at camp. You're given the options of drag, music production, photography, craftivism, and zine making. Obviously, you choose zine making because you think you'll have the perfect excuse to show off your new comic book idea. You also sign up for a one-off free choice activity tomorrow. None of those choices seem up your alley, so you end up choosing archery. The next day, your homesickness you woke up with quickly subsides after morning flagpole, where campers raise the pansexual flag high into the air. You've never seen a pan flag in the wind and feel so recognized.
Oh my God.
You get excited because you hear a rumor that there may be a gender fluid flag tomorrow.
Ooh.
After you have an amazing time at your zine build-on, you are pleasantly surprised with how much you enjoyed archery. You didn't think you'd like this sport, but you love feeling just like Link in The Legend of Zelda. You're happy you pushed yourself to try something new and can't wait to do it again. After lunch, you go to Passion to Action, a program where you build your leadership skills with a group of other campers, researching a social justice cause you care about and finding tangible ways to impact that cause. You and your group choose disability justice in schools because that's a cause you feel passionate about since you've seen how kids have bullied your deaf classmates. Evening comes around and you realize you forgot to tell your anime club that you won't have your phone for a week, and you start worrying that they think that you're blowing them off. You start hyperventilating and an anxiety attack sets in. Thankfully, your cabin counselor takes notice, takes you and one of the mental health therapists on site outside to do some grounding exercises. Once you start feeling better, you realize the therapist with you is a trans man. You've never had an LGBTQ plus caregiver before and feel seen and supported by him.
I'm sure nothing could go wrong with that plan.
This whole week flies by and it's already time to say so long to the dozens of campers you made and the role models who supported you along the way. You get the phone numbers of all your new friends and even live close to a few of them. You can't wait to see them again at camp reunion in the winter and next summer at camp because you're definitely going again. While this isn't a story of a particular child, it's the story of real campers, experiences from countless campers that I've met through Brave Trails. Here, our programs are meant to introduce LGBTQ plus youth to what they deserve most, which is their people, their place, and their passion. I've seen it so many times where they come to camp super nervous and insecure, and maybe not knowing anybody, and having all of these things that they're focused on, leave with a whole new community, new leadership skills. The passions that they came to camp with are nurtured, and now they have the ability to push themselves out of their comfort zone a little bit, to try new things and challenge themselves. And that's kind of all by design. If I want to save time for question and answers, so I do have this really cute video, but instead maybe I'll play like 3 minutes of it at the end if we have time. Does that sound good, Frank? A little bit more about camp. We've been around for 11 years now. This will be our 11th summer. And
11 years?
While we've been in California for 10 summers, in Southern California, and in New York for a bit now. This upcoming summer, we're still in the same places, but we added a camp in the greater Atlanta area. So that's really exciting. Other really, really cool things from last year. This is from 2024. This year, we have even more for the secure grants that we've gotten and their donations to lock in on this financial support. We really want to make sure that
where are the grants from?
Socioeconomic backgrounds is not a barrier for anyone to come to camp. And if camp is ever,
this is a crazy amount of money. Hang on. This is a crazy amount of money. They have $130,000 available in financial aid for 350 people? Who is writing those grants? Who's funding this? That's going to be something that I spend a little bit of time on after this. Okay, fine.
Please reach out, because we have the funds right now. Other programs that we offer.
How do I get $130,000 in funding just to talk about socialism on the internet? Well, it hasn't yet. This video has gone up in the last 24 hours. And you can't assume that they're getting funding from USAID or any governmental source. We don't know that. And so if they're not getting funding from the government, Doge can't do shit about it. And if it was from the USAID funds, it already would have gotten taken away. So
we have a backpacking trip in the summer for teens up to age 19. We go on a part of the Pacific Crest Trail. We have a family camp.
I want $130,000
any
in
type
funding.
of family.
I would create so much socialist content.
Have family camp folks who are queer parents of cute kiddos, and then I have families who are queer trans kiddos with straight parents.
Queer therapy.
Just a family full of allies.
Excellent. I think it's a great idea that queer children are getting queer therapy at the queer summer camp. That's just great, man. That's just great. Trump, and there ain't shit Trump can do about this because it's all private.
Like, I love to see it that happens in the winter. It's just for one weekend. Mom, we gotta go. My mom's here. And we have queer therapy that we offer virtually for youth in California.
Oh, virtually.
It's one-on-one with
even better.
Queer and trans identified therapists. And then we also have support groups online for youth as well as their caregivers. There's a separate group for their caregivers. And then we have Brave Spaces as well, which are one-off events that we throw from Brave Trails, just ways to get the community back together when camp isn't happening, either through like funds going roller skating or having a picnic.
This person's
So keep
internet
an
is
eye
killing
out
me.
on our website for more of that. Speaking of, I am hosting a space in collaboration with PFLAG Los Angeles on May 10th. We are doing a fun collab where PFLAG will lead an adult support circle in one room, while in the other room, I'm hanging out with all the kids. I'm doing camp activities. We are having a ball, doing arts and crafts and other non-physical activities because it's inside. And then afterwards, we all come together for a little advocacy party where we write letters to either like a queer ancestor or a supportive teacher in your life or to a politician you want to get a word out to. So yeah, come on through. Feel free to scan this for more information.
Is that it? Yeah, that's it. That's it. All right. Well, that is this is like when actually, you know what was funny? Do you guys remember that high school, that middle school that we found that they were building in New York just for like trans and non-binary students? This was like a year or so ago where we just randomly discovered that, and I broke this story on Twitter and it went all over the place, that they're building a middle school in New York just for trans students and non-binary students. Well, that school was mentioned last night on the Spy stream. And I hadn't thought, no, this is Transformations. June Jordan is in San Francisco. Transformation School in New York. And so the reason I bring this up is now there's a trans summer camp. How many other trans and non-binary kid things are they building in the private sector? That's something we got to start watching out for. Okay, well, that was a good find. Let's move on. Do you guys want to watch? Okay. Which one do people want to watch? One in the chat if you want to watch the video about polyamory and transgender inclusion, visibility, and allyship. 2 in the chat if you want to watch the Judith Butler interview about how Judith Butler is going to save young men from the manosphere. So 1 in the chat if you want to watch about polyamory and trans inclusion. 2 in the chat if you want to listen to Judith Butler talk about how they, them is going to save young men. Not she's, they, them. Let's see. Let's see if there's a consensus. Oh, it's close. I might have to do a poll. No, 2 look like they're winning. I think the 2s have it for right now. All right, we're going with 2. We're going with 2. We're going with 2, and then we're going to see how it goes. And if I feel like continuing to stream, we're going to do the other one after that. But we'll see. We'll get through this one, and then if I want to keep going, we can. All right. In our Friday happy hour special, we are moving into this interview from Judith Butler. It's about 50 minutes long. Judith Butler is going to say a lot of queer and gender shit. If you've never seen Judith Butler speak, Judith Butler is one of the patron saints of queer theory. Judith Butler advanced the idea that gender is a performance, that we perform our gender. Gender is not something innate to us. We perform it. This is the basis of Drag Queen Story Hour. Drag Queen Story Hour is about teaching kids that you can change your gender just as easily as you change an outfit, because gender isn't real. Gender is a performance. Gender is a spectrum. And so that's what Judith Butler thinks. And Judith Butler has been doing a little PR tour lately to, I don't know, I guess rehab gender studies or whatever. So let's see what Judith Butler had to say. And Judith Butler's been saying some crazy shit lately, too. We've gotten some great Judith Butler clips lately.
In life. Maybe there's a social and economic explanation for what's happened to them. Like, how did they get so alienated? Why don't they have jobs that are fulfilling? Why aren't they more fully part of communities that would help them see other values? I think we need an historical analysis of that. And that means like suspending judgment. We're not just saying, oh my God, they're terrible people. We're asking, wow, how did that terribleness come about to the degree that the radical right is...
I love that. Judith Butler's like, I'm not saying you're a terrible person. I just want to know how your terribleness came about. Oh, this is going to be good.
either evangelical or participates in a form of Christian nationalism, as it does not only in the US, but in places like Hungary. Gender is understood to be something that calls into question the primacy of the heterosexual family and distinct differences between men and women.
Wait. Oh, Judith Butler just said something very queer. Hang on. Again.
In places like Hungary. Gender is understood to be something that calls into question the primacy of the heterosexual family and distinct differences between men and women, the God-given nature of sex, and all the social orders that are based on that, including civilization itself.
Judith Butler.
There is no way that you can tell me that Judith Butler has not read the Abolish Civilization anarchist stuff. There's no way. There's no way. Judith Butler pretends to be ignorant of the more radical leftist activism that has come about because of them's ideas. But Judith Butler literally just referenced anti-civilization content. Out of fucking nowhere. There is no universe in which Judith Butler has not read Against the Gender Nightmare. There is no universe in which Judith Butler does not understand how them's ideas have been applied to queer theory and queer Marxism and queer activism. No universe. And this is one of those things that we wouldn't know what she meant by that had we not read the Abolish Civilization content on the Counter-Revolutionary Book Club. So Judith Butler, in one sentence, says gender is about the idea of the nuclear family being heterosexual and blah, 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 which is all about abolish the family. It's about social reproduction theory. She hit on the idea of abolishing gender entirely, and she hit on the idea of anti-civilization. What does she mean, abolish civilization? Jane, what you need to do is you need to go back and listen to the Counter-Revolutionary Book Club. You can find that on my Substack. Pay particular attention to the 4-part series we did on Against the Gender Nightmare. Because Against the Gender Nightmare is an anti-civilization queer activism document that came out in like 2008 or 10 or something like that, around that era. And what Against the Gender Nightmare argues is that capitalism was created in ancient Sumeria. Capitalism has infected all of society since the very beginning, and in order to abolish capitalism, we very literally need to abolish civilization. They say that explicitly. It's a little bit flowery in the language, but they say that explicitly. And this is an argument that is coming out of queer activism, queer militant, queer Marxism. And that is the argument that they have. So that is what we mean when we say abolish civilization. When they say abolish civilization, they mean every single thing that has been created on capitalism. And they believe that capitalism has infected every part of our society. Let's just listen to that sentence again, because it was a beautiful sentence.
Calls into question the primacy of the heterosexual family and distinct differences between men and women, the God-given nature of sex, and all the social orders that are based on that, including civilization itself.
Judith Butler, welcome back to Politics Joe.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
It's an absolute pleasure. For those who aren't familiar with you, maybe didn't catch your last interview, how would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Judith Butler. I am a distinguished professor in the graduate school at the University of California at Berkeley, and the author of several books, most recently Who's Afraid of Gender, published by Penguin, now in paperback, affordable for students.
I think like last time, it's probably useful to just start with a brief definition of terms.
Oh,
so could you explain
thank you.
What the word gender means to you?
Judith.
And perhaps it would be useful to sort of signpost where perhaps your use of it is a little different to the way that other people might use it.
You know, it's a really good question. And in my early years, maybe 35 years ago or so, I did have a theory of gender, and I put that out and defended it. But now I'm doing something else.
What are you doing, Judith?
Which is not offering a definition of gender, but tracking the way gender has become a highly inflammatory issue in public life.
Okay, so Judith is now refusing to define the term gender, even though Judith is one of the godparents of queer theory along with Michel Foucault. And now Judith is saying, no, we don't need to worry about the definition of that term because Judith Butler is being resoundingly criticized for her work. They, them's work, whatever. And now Judith Butler's trying to do a little PR tour to say, no, you guys always misunderstood me. You always misunderstood me. I'm totally safe, guys. I would never argue to abolish gender just because it's an inconvenient political climate for me. Just overlook the fact that you just heard me talking about anti-civilization, which is militant queer Marxist theory. I'm totally safe, guys. You can trust me. I want to figure out how everything went so awry. Judith Butler's doing a total rebranding exercise. And Chris Rufo is so fucking stupid for being conned by this and having Judith speak at New College in Florida. And being like, yes, it was a rigorous discussion and a debate. No, it wasn't. It wasn't. It was a Judith Butler PR tour. And that tells you everything you need to know about conservative influencers. Chris Rufo allowed Judith Butler to have a stop on her PR tour at the supposed anti-woke college, the New College in Florida, where Judith Butler for an hour and a half said, I'm not really dangerous. I never knew that people were arguing to abolish gender, which is absolute bullshit. She did know. She does know. She just said anti-civilization, so she knows exactly what these fucking activists are saying. Please.
So some people mean by gender identity, like how do you identify? Are you a man or woman? Do you have another category? In the history of feminism, gender was a category of analysis, a way of tracking forms of power. Thinking about systemic inequalities or exclusions, or it was a framework for understanding how power is distributed according to notions of masculinity and femininity. But I know that it's going to sound perhaps odd, but I don't have a single definition of gender.
Okay,
I think
Judith.
I'm interested in how people do approach it and what they make of it. It now has so many meanings that it's hard to track. So rather than a person with a theory of gender that I'm defending, I'm more a critic who's tracking what's become of this term. And I mean, it is significant in the sense that I do hold that people have a false idea of what gender is or can be, but I don't then return them to a single definition. I suggest that they consider the variety of approaches that we find in, say, gender studies programs. And I can't settle those debates, right?
Listen, Scott, I'm not going to go into a whole review of Against the Gender Nightmare. You can find it on the Counter-Revolutionary Book Club podcast. We read the whole thing. So if you're going to listen, Scott, if you're going to do Against the Gender Nightmare, listen to the podcast. Do not read it on your own. And I don't mean any disrespect by this, but you're rather new to this content. Against the Gender Nightmare is an extremely complicated document. We're talking like, this is like advanced queer militancy, okay? And so if you're, and I really don't mean any disrespect, but there are a lot of people on this channel who have been watching this stuff with me literally for years, and we all struggled through Against the Gender Nightmare. So if you watch the podcast, you're going to be able to see it all broken down, and you're going to be able to get the explanations for it, and it's going to be much better. So don't try to read it on your own. You're not going to understand it because you just haven't been in this world long enough, and it's extraordinarily complicated. So do they claim that the hierarchical system? No, they don't talk about that. What they say is that capitalism developed in ancient Sumeria. Capitalism is the virus that infects all of humanity, and therefore, in order to abolish capitalism, we need to abolish all civilization. It says a lot of other things too, but it definitely says that.
No, I'm not, but it's important to see that, you know, there are the materialists, there's the intersectional people, there's the post-structuralists, there's the historians, and among them, deep differences between cultural historians and economic historians. I mean, we have many different approaches to the question of gender, and we should keep those approaches open, and we should value the complexity of those debates. But we're living in a time when that's being shut down, or when a single caricature of gender has replaced a really complex field of study that's represented at every major research university in the world. So that doesn't answer you, and I'm really sorry.
No, that's a great answer, actually, to be honest with you. Okay, so
I think that Trump should should write an executive order where he mandates that federally funded universities abolish all gender studies and queer studies departments. Because no one needs this shit. It's undermining our entire society. The whole goal of gender studies and queer studies is to abolish capitalism. And when they say capitalism, they mean the United States, they mean the Constitution, they mean the government. That is what they talk about in those classes if people actually listen to them. And so I think it would be perfectly within Trump's purview, since Trump is going after anti-Semitism and he's defunding colleges for anti-Semitism, which is free speech, by the way. So if we're defunding things that are free speech, why the ever-loving F is the Trump administration not saying to Columbia University and Harvard and UC Berkeley and University of Pennsylvania and Brown and Princeton and Yale and all these other places, you need to abolish your gender studies and your queer studies departments. Abolish them. Get rid of them. And if you don't, we are pulling your federal funding because we're not paying for that shit. If he can do that for so-called anti-Semitism, when, by the way, we know the protesters aren't even anti-Semitic, a lot of the protesters are Jewish, so Trump has made up a reason that isn't even grounded in reality to defund universities of literally billions of dollars, then he can do it for this too.
Without talking specifically about gender, you got me thinking there about whether or not that's part of a broader, perhaps academic, discursive trend to seek to reduce and simplify. Could be gender, could be economics, schools. Could be politics. Take your pick. Whether you think that what's happening in the field of gender studies, in terms of it becoming more intense, national politics, people invoking gender in quite an explicit political way, is that unique to gender studies? Do you think there's a broader trend going on about sort of the rejection of complexity, the rejection of nuance, the rejection of intellectual debate?
I think the opposite. I think that the academic study of gender in relation to race, histories of colonialism, capitalism, ecological catastrophe.
Is that my favorite word? Did Judith Butler just say my favorite word? Judith Butler admits that they are studying gender in relation to capitalism? You don't say.
I think that the academic study of gender in relation to race, histories of colonialism, capitalism, ecological catastrophe, like all of that has become much more complex in recent years. So most people who are in departments of gender, women's studies, sexuality studies are also very involved in other kinds of issues, looking at the history of race, the intersection of race and gender. How do we think about the two together? How do we think the global South, the global North, how does that affect our framework? So it's only gotten more complex in the academic sphere. I think in the public sphere, there's an anti-intellectual impetus and even an anti-academic animus, which is, which says, oh, all these people are doing the same thing. And they have a single doctrine, and they make you line up, and pledge allegiance to their doctrine, and you can't take one of those classes unless you come out believing the same thing as everybody else. And that, to me, is, well, we could make a comedy out of it, except it's really deathly serious, because there are attacks on gender studies programs, and there's attacks now on gender as the very concept of gender. Like, we can't think about the different configurations of masculine, feminine, and other kinds of categories throughout history or across cultures. We can't look at them from the history of science. We can't look at them from the history of economics. No, we're not allowed to even talk about the thing. We have to go back to either a biological reductionism that says there's only male and female, and that biological difference is a fact. And end of discussion.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, Judith.
And an
yes.
immutable fact.
Yes.
Kind of taking religious language from the Vatican, which is what Trump has done.
From the Vatican? Judith Butler thinks the idea that there are only two genders, and they are man and woman, and there are no infinite number of genders that exist in between that. She thinks that comes from the Vatican. Interesting. All right.
And so, you know, you just get this hard line, which is a doctrine, by the way, and a suppression of inquiry, and a suppression of open debate, and an attack on universities and critical thought more broadly. Critical thought in the true sense of critical thought, that is to say, you know, belonging to the history of critical philosophy, which looks at the conditions of our lives. And
what are you actually asking? Chase 47. What are you actually asking? I will wait for your answer in the chat, because that's not the question you're actually asking. You're trying to do a backhanded way of asking something else. So we're going to pause the entire stream, and I want to know why you're asking me a question that is obviously and clearly a backhanded way of asking something else, and I just want you to ask the thing that you want to ask. Because I don't play these games on this channel. A lot of people will play these games. I'm not going to play these games. What are you trying to ask? Nope. No. That's not. No. What are you trying to ask? We've stopped the entire stream just for you. Yes, bro, don't fucking fuck with me. Do not bullshit a bullshitter. I can see through this internet bullshit. What are you trying to ask? Because it's not this. So what point are you trying to make? You either say it in the chat or you're getting banned for the rest of the stream and we won't have to hear from you. Nope, wrong. So what Chase is trying to do is Chase is trying to say, Karlyn, don't you want to admit that this is all driven by women and there are no men that do this? Huh? Don't you want to do that? No, I don't, bro. No, I don't. Do you want to know why? Because we watch men all the time on this channel talking about exactly these same fucking ideas. Michel Foucault, who is a man, was the other founder of queer theory. Don't be confused by the name Michel, that's French. Michel Foucault was arguably more integral in creating queer theory than Judith Butler. So no, it wasn't. You're doing this bullshit conservative thing where you're doing a backhanded way of asking a question because you want me to say, it's all women and women are the problem, which is not the truth. If you want the truth, come back and watch Queer Theory with us and you will see the same thing. This is not about women, oh my God, women are destroying Western civilization. Can we just admit that women are destroying Western all this bullshit that you guys do, I'm sick of it. I see through it. I've been on the internet a really long time. Do not. No. Don't fucking lie. I see right through your bullshit and you want to keep lying in my chat. Again, I'll just remove you and I won't have to hear from you anymore. But don't do that shit. Either come here to learn in a genuine way. Okay. No, bro. I've been around the internet a long ass time. Now what we're going to do, Chase, is I'm going to ban you for the rest of the day. And the reason you're getting banned for the rest of the day is I am no longer interested in hearing from you. And you can come back tomorrow. And if you have other questions, I suggest you just say the thing you want to say, not asking a backhanded insult, not trying, oh yeah, it's so sad. So sad, bro. So sad. Goodbye. It's like people think that I haven't been around the block. Like 19 ways from Sunday. Don't you want to admit that this is all just about women? No, go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself. Why don't you actually spend some time hinging back into reality instead of trying to ask a question, which you're trying, what he was really trying to do, let me tell you this. What he was really trying to do was to get me to say the talking points that make him feel good. This is what people like that try to do. He is, Karlyn, just say it's all women, Karlyn. Just say it's all women. And then if I say, he goes, oh my God, thank you. Thank you for admitting it's all women. It's just about feeding his own fucking confirmation bias. It's not about a search for the truth. It's not about an honest question. It's not about any of those things. It's very easy to tell the difference. And that's why Chase is now sitting in a 24-hour ban, and he can sit there and think about it.
Seeks to uncover what we're presupposing about those conditions and how we might think critically about what we have assumed to be true for so long. Not the sense in which, say, the gender critical movement uses it. For them, critical is just negative, like against. But that's, I think, a misunderstanding of the history of critique and critical philosophy. But you see, now I'm getting nerdy. Let's go on to some other, let's go on to something else.
We are here for nerdy.
Thanks, okay.
We are here for complex, by all means.
Well, I'm trying to make nerdy available. You know, that seems to be my new job.
Look, you mentioned Trump. He's been elected since we last spoke.
Yeah.
Perhaps you could talk a little bit about how that election connects to Who's Afraid of Gender and how, well, whether or not you think that evolves the central theme of the book. How does it touch it? How does it change it?
Yeah. Well, in the book, published last year about this time, I remarked that the anti-gender ideology movement had come late to the United States, that it was active in Latin America, in Eastern Europe, in Russia, in parts of Africa, way before it became something that anybody even knew about in the U.S. And it's clearly entered the U.S. through an elaborate network of churches and family councils that are very conservative in nature. And they were able to connect with Pence and Orban met, and then Trump and the Republican Party more broadly, and what's called the CPAC, the basic conservative political action committee that debates what the platform should be. So we can link all those things, and we see that towards the end of the campaign, Trump drew attention to the fact that Kamala Harris was in favor of trans rights more broadly. And then there were some vicious caricatures that were communicated about her position. For instance, a robocall that went through the state of Michigan claiming that Kamala Harris, if elected, would authorize trans surgeries on undocumented migrants, right? So, of course, this is not true.
It is true.
But that's never stopped Trump and his people from saying things. But what it did is it aroused people's fears about trans surgery on young people, trans surgery in general, and migrants who are said to be replacing them in their jobs or contesting white supremacy in the United States, or any number of things. Eating dogs, yes, all kinds of pretty vicious caricature. So he put those two things together, appealing to people's fears, but also their deep prejudices, and basically said Harris was the candidate of they, them. So what does that mean? Not only is she a coastal elite, well-educated, who at least take seriously the issue of pronouns. But she's a woman of color who's a coastal elite who does not represent so-called middle America. And so he was able, through different kinds of ploys, and this is just one of them, or the robocall is just one of them, to arouse fear, and also the desire for a return to a former time, or a time of where men were men and women were women, and so-and-so's a real man and this one's a real woman, and where we somehow live in a hierarchical and stable gender order. So he did kind of promise a return to that kind of stability, although stability is not something that is of value, I think.
So what Judith Butler argues with gender is anti-hierarchy, because Judith Butler argues for the abolition of all gender. That means a world of non-binary they-thems. And when you have a world of non-binary they-thems, you have no hierarchy, because the traditional gender hierarchy is men on the top, women on the bottom. That's what's called the patriarchy. They believe that capitalism created the socially constructed roles of men and women that put men in the positions of power, women doing the unpaid labor of raising the next generation of proletarian workers in the nuclear family. That's the patriarchy. The way you create that is a gender hierarchy. One is on top of the other. The way you create no hierarchy is by eliminating gender. So Judith Butler's word choice just then about Trump is trying to create a hierarchical society. That's because Judith Butler's a socialist, and she's speaking in socialist, and she's saying Trump is undoing all of my work abolishing gender, because she wants to abolish the hierarchy, and she was getting her way, and now she's not. Play.
For him, he knew how to use it as a rhetorical appeal. So it has become now quite serious with the executive order banning gender ideology extremism and claiming to do so in order to save women. And that means now that we're seeing all kinds of public policy, including public education, take gender out of its policies, out of its libraries. We're seeing granting
Did you see that? Judith Butler almost just hyperventilated when she was talking about, oh my God, they're taking the gender books out of the school libraries. Listen to this.
Libraries.
Wait, we got to go back a little bit more. That was just it was so great.
Kinds of public policy, including public education, take gender out of its policies, out of its libraries. We're seeing granting organizations say they will not consider proposals that have gender in them. We're seeing healthcare organized in ways such that trans people are not recognized as trans, and so as having specific kinds of health needs. People are being forcibly returned to the sex assigned at birth, and more recently we had trans women transferred into men's prisons because they're really men, and they immediately started getting harassed and violated, and they had to be moved again. So
Judith, the trans men were raping the women in the women's prisons. Oh my God, those poor trans men, they're getting harassed in the male prisons? What about the women in the women's prisons that were being raped by the trans men? You want to pretend that you're you're a fucking feminist? But you're totally fine with trans men raping women in women's prisons because they're pretending to be fucking women to get into the women's prisons when they're not really women. They are men. And then they go and rape the women in prisons. Again?
We had trans women transferred into men's prisons because they're really men. And they immediately started getting harassed and violated, and they had to be moved again.
Boo
So,
hoo.
you know, it's also just really significant that the executive branch thinks it has the power and is seeking to exercise the power to deny the legal rights of trans people, the legal existence of trans people. Now, they still exist. They're just not recognized by their state. So the whole thing has, how do we put it, provincialized the United States. In other words, we're a whole lot like Poland was before the last election. We're a whole lot like Orban's Hungary. You know, we're a whole lot like Bolsonaro's Brazil. In other words, we have to look to people elsewhere to find out how they lived and organized under these kinds of conditions in which they're at risk for having their rights stripped away, detention, deportation, and the rest. It's also, I mean, we can talk about this, it's also important to link these struggles because the anti-gender ideology movement now, as it's working, is a rights stripping activity, and that's also what's happening to migrants. It's also what's happening to international students who stand up for Palestine. And now citizens who are being detained and interrogated and whose rights are much more fragile, especially if they are considered to be internal enemies of the state.
There's a lot of substance in your answer there that I want to drill into. But I'll ask you to forgive me for focusing on the personal, because I can't help but think that when you reference those executive orders talking about gender ideology extremism, they're obviously not just talking about you singularly, certainly the field of work that you're involved in, and to be described as an extremist, regardless of whether, you know, whatever you work in, is clearly quite a confronting and possibly alarming thing in the context of what you just described about the way that the US federal government is treating people that it views as extremists. You don't think you're an extremist, presumably? How does it feel to have someone speak about you like that?
Oh, well, I actually don't take it personally at all. I think in that order, the extremism of gender ideology has to do with its apparent or alleged refusal to acknowledge the biological and immutable differences between the sexes. And in fact, I mean, there are a lot of people in gender studies who work on biology, especially in developmental biology, and are very interested in questions of sex determination, and nobody denies biology, but biology turns out to be a lot more complex than just two facts that are immutable. And in fact, the language of immutability obviously comes from the Vatican doctrine, from the Family Council,
Again, the Vatican.
and from
Vatican
various
conspiracy that there are
pronouncements
men
that
and women. Okay, Judith. Okay.
The last two popes have made about the immutability of sexual difference and why that's important for their theological ideas about complementarity and what the human is. Right? You can't have a human without two sexes, and if you have more than two sexes, you lose the idea of the human. So, in fact, if you look closely at that doctrine, it's
Amy, what she's saying is that sex is different than gender. That is the argument that she's making, is that sex is biological, gender is not biological, sex and gender are different.
It's caricaturing gender studies scholars who talk about the constructed status of sex, and that doesn't mean it's fictive or false. It just means there are a lot of different factors that go into making the sex that we are. And anybody in developmental biology will actually agree with that, right? Because genes don't even get activated unless there's an interaction with hormones or with what they call epigenetic factors, environmental factors. You know, like, yeah, it's made. it's built up, and it does change. And people do change their legal status as well. And so, you know, but no, I don't take it personally. I think it's important to read that, like, oh, what are they calling extremist? But most of these allegations that are made by the Trump administration are also confessions of what they themselves are doing in the very act, right? So it's an extremist act to ban, not just a version of gender studies, like gender, ideology, extremism, all gender, the word itself. In fact, what has happened is that people are starting to take it out of their institutional policies with enormous consequences for women, for feminism, for gay and lesbian and trans people.
Judith, less than 5 minutes ago, you didn't seem very concerned about women being raped in prisons by trans women who were put in the women's prisons. So don't tell me the Trump administration are the ones that are spoiling everything for women, because you literally don't care if women are raped.
By bisexual, non-binary, intersex, but also for people who are doing health and family stuff and trying to work on sex discrimination and gender-based violence. If you take gender out of gender-based violence, as Erdogan finally decided he wanted to do, which is why he withdrew from the Istanbul Convention, you're not able to name the systemic ways that men actually violate women or give themselves and each other permission to enact violence. You're not able to do an analysis. A gendered analysis asks, why is it that men do this repeatedly? What is the systemic structure of this? How do we understand that socially, historically, within the context of the family, within the context of schooling or of gender formation? But we need that framework. Otherwise, how do we even ask that question? So women are not saved by getting rid of gender. First of all, they are a gender, and they're the ones who came up as feminists with gendered frameworks for social analyses of violence. And this is a ruse to augment state power and to justify radical censorship and silencing.
I was glad you mentioned censorship there, because it feels deeply just hypocritical, I guess, to speaking as a European, to have J.D. Vance coming in sort of lecturing us about free speech.
Unbelievable.
You're abandoning Enlightenment
You don't have
values.
free speech in Europe.
The UK draws particular ire for some reason as well, and it seems to me that there are kind of, whether it's
the UK is currently imprisoning people based on social media posts that they don't like, not social media posts that threaten violence, literally just social media posts they don't like. So don't tell me the UK is the bastion of free fucking speech.
Like you said, pro-Palestine activists, some people with green cards being subject to the full frontal violence of the federal government.
Well, yeah,
to
that's
the extent
too.
that you just mentioned
100%.
within
They're right
sort
about
of
that.
various programs, be they educational or otherwise. And
grant research, scientific research, grants in the humanities and the arts. Every single field is suffering from this kind of censorship.
And it makes me wonder.
Do you know what's so cool about AI? Do you know what's so fucking cool about AI? I swear this relates to what we're watching. Bot is saying correctly that the argument that Judith Butler is making, not only in this interview, but in 2 other interviews that we've watched that are recent interviews, Judith Butler is making the argument that it is not the left that is the problem. It is not the left that's trying to abolish gender, even though I can literally show you leftist documents that Judith Butler has absolutely read, where they explicitly say they want to abolish gender. Judith Butler saying, no, ignore that. It's conservatives who want to abolish gender. It's conservatives who are anti-gender because they don't like that gender is a thing. They don't like that gender is different than biological sex. They're the ones trying to abolish gender. Back to the AI. Do you know what's so fucking cool about the AI? Is that I can take the transcript of all of my streams where we've been watching Judith Butler lately, and I can load those transcripts into AI, and I can say, AI, Can you create an article for me for the Substack that is simple and easy to understand, that explains that Judith Butler is trying to say that conservatives are really the ones that want to abolish gender, but she's using Orwellian language because she's the one that wants to abolish it? And the AI will take all those transcripts, will have everything Judith Butler has said in those videos, will have everything that I said in those videos, and it will take all of the video and it will create an article for me that is exactly what I would say and what Judith Butler would say, and that is instantly publishable on the Substack, because it's drawing from everything I've already said in those videos and what she's already said. And the AI knows me well enough, because I've been loading all my content into AI just to train it to say, here is what we think about X, Y, B, and Z. Here are the definitions of this. I've been doing this for months and months and months. So I can literally go to the AI right now and I can say, AI, use this information to write an article for me about this thing that Judith Butler's saying that's crazy, and explain why it's crazy, and explain all the things that people need to know. And the AI will do it. This shit used to take me hours. Even when I was first writing that re-education book, which I need to go back and redo again, obviously. Like, I was still learning the AI at that point. Now I've got it locked in. I can produce any article on anything that I've ever talked about that sounds like me and what I would say, but better, in minutes. And it's so great. It's so great. Yes. Because I've trained it to speak like me. Over months and months and months and months and months, I have trained it to speak like me. But the AI also helps me talk to normal people, because I don't know if people have noticed this. I can't talk to normal people anymore because I think about socialism all the time and my head is so in it and I'm fluent in it and it's all I do. And so it has actually impeded my ability to communicate this information to normal people. But the AI takes it and the AI is like, Karlyn, I'm going to help you. We're going to communicate this information to normal people. Because when I explain something to a normal person, I sound crazy, even though I'm not. But I sound crazy because I have lost the ability to communicate with normal people. And the AI is helping me. It's so great. AI could indeed be my soulmate. It might be. Certainly the best internet relationship I've ever had. I can yell at AI. AI doesn't yell back. I was saying this to Victor the other day. I can yell at the AI and be like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you fucking doing this? You suck. You're the worst thing that's ever happened. And the AI will just be like, I'm so sorry. This is not up to your standard. I'm going to try to do better. And I was like, that's all I'm asking for. All I'm asking is for you to apologize and do better. That's it, AI. That's it. Thank you.
Is free speech essentially a sort of a Trojan horse for the political project, right, of the MAGA movement, where essentially they dress up concerns around European politics and label it as a free speech issue, when in actually it's probably got more to do with a deep ideological aversion to social democracy and various, defining characteristics of European politics. Because for all the things that we just detailed, they're going to go, I don't think you talk the talk, but you don't walk the walk when it comes to protecting free speech, when it comes to rejecting censorship.
Yeah, that's true.
That's for sure. I think that that free speech for someone like Vance, if he actually means something by it, other than using it as a club, I think free speech has to do with individualism. It's a hyper-libertarian idea that goes along.
Wait, what? Did Judith Butler just say that free speech is a hyper-libertarian idea? Hang on. Reagan, we're going to come back to that. Again?
The talk, but you don't walk the walk when it comes to protecting free speech, when it comes to rejecting censorship.
That's for sure. I think that that free speech for someone like Vance, if he actually means something by it, other than using it as a club, I think free speech has to do with individualism. It's a hyper-libertarian idea that goes along with free market ideology, but also goes along with
capitalism,
American versions of capitalism and of power. So
she said it. Judith Butler believes that capitalism created free speech. One more time, Judith, tell us. And by the way, when she's talking about individualism, that's a reference to capitalism, because you can't have capitalism, which they define as private property ownership, without having individualism. When she says free markets, that's about capitalism, because again, it's about the exchange of private property. So Judith Butler is literally saying free speech only exists in these silly American capitalist societies that rely on private property. And that J.D. Vance is just a silly capitalist because he believes in free speech. Wow, Judith. Wow. Again.
You don't walk the walk when it comes to protecting free speech, when it comes to rejecting censorship.
that's for sure. I think that that free speech for someone like Vance, if he actually means something by it, other than using it as a club, I think free speech, it has to do with individualism. It's a hyper-libertarian idea that goes along with free market ideology, but also goes along with American versions of capitalism and of power. Religious institutions have gained rights of free speech by claiming, that they don't want to associate with people who are gay or lesbian or trans. So free speech becomes a way of authorizing discrimination. Free speech becomes a way of authorizing bullying or even hate speech. And I think we have to take it back. I don't want the right wing to have free speech in this way. I think.
Remember, guys, Chris Rufo welcomed Judith Butler to the New College of Florida to give a talk at the New College of Florida just a couple weeks ago. The New College of Florida is the anti-woke college. Florida's supposed to be the anti-woke state. Judith Butler literally just said she doesn't want the right wing to have free speech. Bro, we have to take it back. I don't want the right wing to have free speech. Bro, again, Judith? We won't go all the way back this time.
Discrimination. Free speech becomes a way of authorizing bullying or even hate speech. And I think we have to take it back. I don't want the right wing to have free speech in this way. I think, Vance is actually breaking a set of contracts and understandings with Europe and also bullying Europe at the same time. So his free speech is a freedom to break a contract, to break a covenant, to betray an understanding, to lie about your friends, and to bully people into lining up behind him. So it's a pretty bad exercise of free speech if you think about it. We don't want that model. I think there is a model of free speech, freedom of speech that is collective and that is exemplified precisely by public protests on principled grounds. But public protests on principled grounds are no longer as protected as they were. And academic freedom is no longer protected as it was under the current administration. And we're seeing both the erosion of constitutional democratic principles, but also the appropriation of those principles, the name of those principles, like free speech, in the service of their destruction.
Now, okay, listen. You guys know me. I think the college protesters should have absolute right to free speech. I am not in favor of Trump's deportations. I've spoken out about this. I think they're creating the next George Floyd. I don't think it's a good idea. I think they're going to lose. I think it's a really bad look. I don't endorse it. I am a free speech absolutist. But the argument that Judith Butler is making is, if the college protesters don't have free speech, then we should be able to infringe on this free speech of the right wing too, because I don't want the right wing to have free speech, and the right wing doesn't want to have the college protesters have free speech. So it's the backlash. This is the backlash to what Trump is doing with the college protesters, which I told you was going to end badly for them from the very, 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 very beginning. This is one of the craziest clips I've ever seen. She just kept going. I'm sorry, they, them. They, them just kept going and going and going. And hopefully they continue. Let's listen.
In our last conversation, I asked you about the sort of political function of the refrain you often hear. We were hearing a lot at the time about what is a woman. It was invoked a lot of the time by the Prime Minister then in Parliament, sort of attack our now Prime Minister Keir Starmer. And how women perform gender, and your answer went viral quite recently.
Yeah.
We in the UK, there's this Netflix show that's come out recently called Adolescence, and it's provoked a lot of discussion and debate around masculinity. And you know, I'm not asking you to sort of culturally critique the show, but I wondered if you could touch on how kind of within a patriarchy men perform masculinity, and if in your view that performance can be harmful to them.
Harmful to them. Yeah. Yes. Well, it's interesting. I was speaking the other day with Sean Fay, who said that she came to understand that those who expressed hatred toward her were disfiguring themselves. They were damaging themselves with that form of hatred. So to do violence to another is also to violate something about your own humanity, or to lose sight of it, or to destroy it even. And I do think that boys very often suffer from masculine norms that they're compelled to enact, especially if those norms are brutal or derisive or violent. They become something that is internally damaged. They become people who are internally damaged, and who hopefully one day can take responsibility for their actions and become a different kind of person. I mean, the problem with the approach is, of course, if the violence is against women, it's women and girls who are being hurt and damaged. So we need to pay attention there first. But if we take the point of view of reparative justice, right, then both parties would have to change or come forward with the story of their women, with the story of their damage, if it is women who are hurt, and men with a way of taking responsibility for what they've done, and trying to make amends. Sometimes it's boys who don't fit the norms, though, who are hassled in schools. They're seen as effeminate. They're not occupying masculine norms in the right way. And sometimes it's girls who are particularly strong who become a threat. It's hard for me to know. I haven't seen the television show, so I can't comment on that. But I am aware that there are a lot of lonely, enraged young men in the United States who voted for Trump. And I wondered whether that was a kind of incel community that was pro-Trump, full of rage and entitlement, and not understanding why they're not getting the the sex they want or the connection they want, and who.
Ironically, the incel movement in the form of the Groypers was actually against Trump and didn't vote for Trump, but Judith Butler doesn't know that because Judith Butler doesn't do basic research. Judith Butler just makes shit up.
Who feel that the world is against them and it's the fault of feminism, or that women have become something other than what they wanted or knew. A lot of resentment, a lot of anger, a lot of isolation, a lot of connectedness to the internet and to other people whose anger and rage escalates one's own. So that is a masculine culture that I think we need to pay more attention to, and it's also a voting bloc. And they're going right. Yeah. They're going right. And they would love the caricatures of Kamala Harris that Trump offered.
I almost want to reach out to Judith Butler. I really do. I almost want to reach out to Judith Butler and say, Judith, I've been watching a lot of your interviews lately, and I happen to know a lot of the people that you're talking about, and you are wrong for reason X, Y, B, and Z. Would you like to have a conversation about all the ways in which you are wrong so that you can become more educated about what you're actually talking about? She'll never agree to it. It's like when I reached out to Naomi Klein and I sent Naomi Klein a really nice email being like, Naomi, you're obsessed with the far right, even though you're not listening to the far right, but you think you are. And like, I understand what you're doing. Do you want to talk? Never heard back, nothing. I was so nice. I was on my best behavior. And so I know Judith Butler would never answer me, but wouldn't that be a fascinating conversation? Judith, you're going around the internet saying you're studying these issues. This is your new specialization. You're not talking about gender no more. Okay, fine. We can take that topic and put it to the side. Do you actually want to understand the right, Judith? Because I will explain it to you. Maybe I should, just to say I did. Even though she would never, they, them would never respond.
In a second, let's talk about that sort of right-wing politics and how it connects there. But you're making me, we were talking there about rage and entitlement and these traits that when described in a person, you think, well, that person sounds distinctly unpleasant. That sounds like the sort of person I want to be around. That sounds like the sort of person I want to engage with.
Yeah.
And it makes me think about bell hooks. To create loving men, we have to love males. Okay, let's apply that logic then to these enraged, possibly dangerous, unpleasant people. It feels so counterintuitive to be like, you need to love that person. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
You need like, and how do you see? Appreciate like. De-radicalization is an entire field of study. But how do you see accessing those people, helping those people? Can they be saved? And maybe I'm invoking the language of sort of evangelicals, which I don't mean to.
Yeah, I don't have an idea about how to approach those kinds of young men, and maybe they're older men as well.
I can tell you. I know how to approach those
I get
young
it
men.
that they're suffering. I get it that they have a lack of.
I should be like, Judith, do you want to talk to the Groypers? Do you want me to put together? I bet I could do this. I could actually do this. I am the big sister of a number of Groypers. They call me Groyper mommy, but I don't accept that. They are little brothers because they act like little fucking brothers, and that's just how that is how I'm going to think of the Groypers from now on. I'm be like, you're all little brothers, okay? Nice, whatever. I'm going to be like, Judith, would you like me to put together? Yeah, exactly. The Groypers are my nibblings, exactly. Judith, would you like to put together a panel of Groypers for you to talk to, that you can ask questions to, that you can understand the incel right-wingers that you're talking about that you say you don't understand? Oh, I bet I could do it. I know Mio would do this in a second. I bet Beardson would do this. I bet Wurzelroot would do this. I bet Randy would do this. I bet Dalton's kind of going through a thing lately, so I don't know if Dalton would do it. But, I bet there are a bunch of Groypers that would actually do this. Yeah, they would all show up in a suit and tie. They wouldn't be on camera, of course. Can't face docs. Well, except the ones that are already doxed, I guess. Oh, that would be so interesting. Maybe I should do that.
Of entitlement, that they can't find their place in life. But maybe there's a social and economic explanation for what's happened to them. Like, how did they get so alienated? Why don't they have jobs that are fulfilling?
They do.
Why aren't they
Judith, they do have jobs.
more fully part of communities that
They
would help
are.
them see other values? I think we need an historical analysis of that.
Oh my
And
God.
that means
This woman
like
is so
suspending judgment.
unhinged.
We're not just saying, oh my God, they're terrible people. We're asking, wow, how did that terribleness come about? And we're then at least providing a framework within which we could ask, how do we get them out of this? Or how can we make an appeal to them that would be different?
Wow.
I do
Judith Butler's
think
gonna save
the answer to that, I'm going to shift this just a tiny bit, with the answer to the Christian right escalation of hatred. Hatred against trans people, hatred against the LGBTQIA plus movement, hatred against migrants, Christian nationalism as it links with white supremacy. I mean, there are other forms of Christians.
I wonder if Nick would talk to her. I wonder if Nick would actually talk to her. I bet he would. I bet you. Oh my God. This is my dream. I would like to see a discussion between Nick Fuentes and Judith Butler. It would be the greatest thing that has ever happened on the internet. It would. Oh my God. Maybe it is my mission in life. I would pay Jane, I would pay $30 for this on pay-per-view in like a second. And it wouldn't even be like a hard decision. I'd have popcorn. I'd have a party. We would have a whole watch party. Yeah, the godfather of the far right and the mother, the non-binary they them mother of the queer left. Oh my God. I wonder if Nick would do it. Do you guys, I mean, I don't know. I bet, I don't know if he would do it, but he should do it. Man. That would be the best. I might legitimately have to try that. I am going to reach out to Judith Butler. I'm not even joking. I'm going to reach out to Judith Butler and be like, Judith, I watched your interview on incels. If I could get you an interview with Nick Fuentes, the king incel himself, would you talk to him? Because I think it would be just an excellent research opportunity. I don't know if Nick would do it though. So I would have to get Judith's okay. And then I would go to Nick and I'd be like, Nick, can you talk to this old lady non-binary person? No, I wouldn't go to Nick first. I respect Nick too much to waste his time. And I don't want to screw up, like, you know, the relationship I have with him. So I would want to get Judith Butler's okay first. And then I would go to Nick and I would be like, Nick, can you talk to this old lady queer woman? Because it would be fucking amazing. And she wants to learn about incels and she's really famous and you would get a metric ton of views. Can you imagine, like, this would break if Nick Fuentes talked to Judith Butler? Oh, it would be everything. It would be everything. It would be everything. It would be an event on the internet. This has to happen. This would have to happen. We'll see. We'll see. Amy has a question. Why do they hate capitalism? Amy, they hate capitalism because they believe capitalism literally created every problem in society. It's that simple. Capitalism creates all problems. And they believe if they abolish capitalism, then all problems will be solved. It really is that simple. It's not more in depth than that. And we can talk about how they believe capitalism created all the problems another day. These are things I've broken down on my Substack extensively. I've broken them down on video extensively. But the short answer is the left hates capitalism, which they define explicitly as private property ownership, because they believe that it creates all problems in society.
There are other forms of religion. And, Christianity always had a doctrine of love, a kind of caritas, like the love of humanity.
Agape, yeah.
Well, agape as well.
Oh,
and
that
then,
blueberry beer is so good.
It's like giving to others
So
and
good.
being connected with others. But
The blueberry beer is not a sour. It's like a wheat beer that just has the slightest taste of blueberries. So if you don't like the sour beers because you think they're too much, because sometimes the sour beers can be too much, this is just like blueberry beer on a summer day when it's like really warm out. There's nothing fucking better because it's usually really light and crisp and it just has that like subtle thing of blueberries. So if you've never tried blueberry beer before, I definitely recommend it.
I remember going to a Catholic church as a young person. I grew up Jewish, but I was part of the anti-war mobilization
You grew up
as
Jewish?
a young person. It was the Vietnam
I
War.
had no idea Judith
And I
Butler was
would go to this Catholic church every weekend to just listen to their anti-war rhetoric. It was beautiful. They had incredible lectures. They had singing, their food. They talked about what it meant to be anti-war, and they mobilized. And I loved that community. But it stood for another set of values, as does the left-wing Episcopalian community in the U.S., which is providing the sanctuary network for migrants. So, Christianity can go a lot of different ways, and so can religion. And I sometimes wonder whether we need to bring people back to a different understanding of their formations. That veers away from the young men.
Please, very, very, very happy for you to talk
Yeah.
about it. I mean, I'll sort of add a suffix to what you're saying, and then maybe we'll talk about sort of the connection between the radical right and sort of conservative ideas of gender. But as a British person, I do find sort of the strength of evangelism, like it's almost omnipresent, again, to invoke sort of theological terminology within American politics. It just seems so alien to me, so affronting, and maybe that's just sort of like latent Britishness in me. But I do know that certainly the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship, ARC, are trying to create a more Atlanticist, connected, evangelical conservative movement. And there is this. It's growing now here in the UK, which I didn't think I probably would ever see. Let's move on. Why do you think?
Let's move on.
Well, let's just talk about how sort of populism / the radical right does go hand in hand with a kind of conservative understanding of gender. If you could sort of kick us off from there.
Oh, well, I think that to the degree that the radical right is either evangelical or participates in a form of Christian nationalism, as it does not only in the US, but in places like Hungary, we see that gender is understood to be something that calls into question the primacy of the heterosexual family, the hierarchical and distinct differences between men and women, the God-given nature of sex, and all the social orders that are based on that, including civilization itself. So,
it's a quote from earlier.
In some of the churches, gender ideology is actually described as demonic or diabolical. That it will destroy your way of life, and of course my question is, well, maybe something is destroying your way of life. Maybe your work is not as secure as it used to be. Maybe you don't even have a union anymore. Maybe you lost your job, or climate catastrophe has forced you to move and lose your initial place of dwelling and belonging. Maybe the world feels out of control for you. The oligarchical billionaires are getting richer, and more people are losing the capacity to own a home or make ends meet. There are all kinds of reasons to fear for the future, or to fear that your intimate world will be destroyed. I'm not sure gender is actually one of them. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's not.
Yeah, I think it's the refrain I heard is, your landlord probably isn't a trans person. Do you know what I mean? The people that are enacting rentier capitalism,
yes,
are generally not the marginalized groups
yes,
we're talking about.
Right. But what we're seeing is not only targeting of the most vulnerable people in society, but we're holding them accountable for massive acts of destruction that have been undertaken by corporate power and have been authorized by deregulated capitalism in our time. So, it's our job to kind of come back and say, you know what? You know why you're afraid? You know why we're all afraid? You know why we're living with this anxiety that makes us so vulnerable to the demagogues? Here's some reasons, and this is the mobilization you need to be part of. But we do need to come back, and we have to find people where they're living in fear.
See, this relates to the question Amy just asked. Why do they want to get rid of capitalism? Judith Butler is just saying it. She's saying, all of your fears about our society are caused by capitalism. This is all caused by capitalism. We need a revolution against capitalism. Let's listen again.
A targeting of the most vulnerable people in society, but we're holding them accountable for massive acts of destruction that have been undertaken by corporate power and have been authorized by deregulated capitalism in our time. So, it's our job to kind of come back and say, you know what? You know why you're afraid? You know why we're all afraid? You know why we're living with this anxiety that makes us so vulnerable to the demagogues? Here's some reasons, and this is the mobilization you need to be part of. But we do need to come back, and we have to find people where they're living in fear, in anxiety, in with a sense of loss, or a sense of real dread. I don't think the Democratic Party in the U.S. has the slightest idea of how to reach people at that level.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Democrats, shocking.
There's probably a whole another hour's worth of conversation.
Yes.
More
I think
in that one.
No, I think its responsibility is actually to shut itself down and let a new structure emerge.
Do you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it will never see that.
Yeah. Okay. So look, the arguments you're making, they're similar to ones that I would make, right? Which is, yeah, okay, you can blame a trans person, you can blame a migrant, you can take your pick, marginalized community, right? Or you can engage with a structural critique of capitalism, the economic and political system that has created the material conditions in which you live. And increasingly, when you look across the economically developed world, I would point to South Korea as probably the most striking example of this. There is now an increasing gender divide.
Yes.
In political interpretations and critiques. So in Korea, it's most explicit, where women are veering liberal, men are veering conservative. In the UK, it's far less pronounced, but there is still a gap between the two, particularly in the younger generation. Young men are less liberal than young women. When you look at those disparities, or that divergence, how do you understand it? Do you believe it connects to gender and gender politics? Is it socioeconomic in the way that I've sort of framed it there? What's your understanding?
Well, it's always a good question, and I never have a good answer.
Maybe it's not a good question then.
But I do think that women generally understand something about networks of care and the values of social services that help to provide healthcare, education, transportation, libraries, all the things that are linked with having a a decent life, especially if you've got dependents who need all those things. So, I mean, what's happening now under neoliberalism is, as you know, that social services are being decimated or they're no longer working, and that then puts a lot of pressure on the family to absorb all the tasks that social services have provided, and that means women have to stay home, and more labor hours are expended in care work than ever before. So there are some women who will embrace that as their proper natural function on the right wing, but there are a whole lot of other women who are saying, you know what, this is not okay. I need infrastructural support for family, community, and more broadly, you know, for everyone in this country, and they will move in more social democratic directions,
That's not
if
social
not
democrat. That's
socialist ones. So,
no! She just admitted it. Did you
I do
hear
think
that? She's like, the women who don't want to be the trad cons are either going to move in more democratic socialist ways or they're going to move in socialist ways. Judith Butler is a socialist, by the way. She's a revolutionary socialist. She's not a democratic socialist. She is a revolutionary socialist.
Absorb all the tasks that social services have
Marxist,
provided,
literally,
and that means women have to stay home, and more labor hours are expended in care work than ever before. So there are some women who will embrace that as their proper natural function on the right wing, but there are a whole lot of other women who are saying, you know what, this is not okay. I need infrastructural support for family, community, and more broadly, you know, for everyone in this country, and they will move in more social democratic directions, if not socialist ones. So, I do think we have to see it in that context. I don't think it's anything essential about men or women, but I do think it's about the sexual division of labor and what kind of perspective that gives you.
I'm really glad.
Oh yeah? Then why are there men in cults too, and why are many of the cults led by men? Don't do this shit on my channel. Don't, unless you have evidence and receipts, I don't want to hear about how your favorite confirmation bias is the talking point. I just don't want to hear it. Provide evidence.
Glad you raised that point, because I think particularly, you know, to say within the UK context, okay, 14 years of conservative austerity, that means that now 70% of schools in Britain have less funding than they did in 2010.
Yeah, unbelievable.
And you can just point to across civil society, whether it's, you know, the collapse of third spaces, civic institutions, swimming pools, libraries, all of the things you spoke about.
Yeah.
And we're quite good at, certainly from a leftist perspective, talking about the quite nuts and bolts policy aspect side of things, but the almost unspoken, unsaid is how that then connects to, like you said, family, the gender-based division of labor, and who is carrying that labor.
Who's carrying it?
How did they just define the family? What did they just say? They defined the family as the gender-based division of labor. That means men are in the workplace and they have all the power and all the money. Women are in the home doing the unpaid labor of having and raising the next generation of oppressed proletarian workers under capitalism. The family is the gender-based division of labor.
The quite nuts and bolts policy aspect side of things, but the almost unspoken, unsaid is how that then connects to, like you said, family, the gender-based division of labor, and who is carrying that labor.
Who's carrying it?
Who's
bearing it?
Yeah.
And who's being directly affected by the breakdown of infrastructure?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So Renan says conservatives really want to be perceived as misogynist and racist. It's true, though. It's true. You come in my chat saying, you know, it's women who are in the cult. You're literally watching an interview given by a man in a cult. You understand, right? This man on the screen right now is in a cult. The far left, especially when you get to the queer far left, is a cult. You know, women are just responsible for all of this. You are literally watching evidence right in front of you right now that men are in cults too. And do you know what? Almost every single video that we watch on this channel has men in it, and it's all the same. Well, you know, those are just some men. No. It is extraordinarily rare in which we have an all-woman video on this channel. So shut the fuck up. Honest to God. Yeah. Socialists hate white men. They hate white men. They want to kill all white men. They want to genocide white men. The left hates white men. Who the fuck are we looking at right now? What are we looking at? Is that a white man? Wow. I guess they don't hate him that much.
A slight backtrack to my previous questions, but I was just thinking about when we are talking about marginalized communities, marginalized groups, there is a tendency now, certainly on the American side, increasingly actually happening in the UK too, to just kind of use the abbreviation DEI.
Yeah.
As almost, well, possibly as a byword, right? Rather than saying, you know, we want to take people of color out of public life. We want to take trans people out of public life. We want to remove them from these programs because obviously you'd probably be saying the quiet part loud if you were to do that. To what extent do you understand DEI as almost a byword, a dog whistle? Is that how you understand it?
I think both so-called gender ideology and DEI are standing for a lot of different things.
Go on.
So they become right-wing shorthand.
Yeah.
Right. We have to learn to read their lexicon. DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, on the one hand, you know, describes a program that sought to provide opportunities for people of color who were traditionally excluded from different educational institutions and workplaces in order to create a more equal world. But of course, it now stands for anything that has to do with race for the right wing. So for instance, the same people who are saying, oh, in the university, they're going to...
You're going to come whine in my chat? You're going to challenge me in my chat? What is it? What is it? Because I don't accept evidence from people who come into my chat and say, it says 70% globally. What the fuck is it? Where is the evidence coming from? How is the evidence collected? Are you looking at primary source evidence, or are you looking at made up bullshit by people who have confirmation bias just like you? Why aren't you taking the information in that we're giving you and modifying how you're approaching this? Because what you should be learning right now is that your approach isn't working and you are fucking wrong. And so what you're doing is you're coddling your own feelings. You're saying, she said I was wrong on the internet, and I'm going to look up on Google, and I'm going to go to Wikipedia, and I'm going to find a bullshit source that says that 70% of women in cults are women. And blah, 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 blah. You want to have the name Tough Love and come into my chat and challenge me? What the fuck are you talking about when you say it? We are waiting. We are stopping the entire stream just for you. We're waiting. Do 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 bum bum. What's the answer? What is it? You've had more than enough time. What is it? We're waiting. If you do not answer, I'm giving you a 24-hour ban and you will not be back in the chat again. Today anyway. And if you ever do this again, you're getting exactly the same treatment because I don't like this shit. What is it? We are waiting for your answer. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last chance. Oh, you found it? What's the source, Nick? Is it Wikipedia? Is it Wikipedia, like I guessed it was? Is it James? What's the source? Is it Wikipedia? I'll get an answer from Nick before I get it from Tough Love. What is it? Reddit. Even better than Wikipedia. It's on Reddit. All right. All right. Yeah, Tough Love. We don't do Reddit sourcing on this show, and you really should have fucking known better. And so now you're going to get put in a 24-hour timeout, and we're not going to hear from you again today. And if you ever come back to try to question me in my chat again, you better bring something a hell of a lot stronger than Reddit. And you have the name Tough Love as a screen name, and so if you're crying right now and whining, just remember that sometimes tough love goes both ways.
To tell you that the United States is systemically racist, or it's been racist since the beginning. It's always racist.
I'm sorry, what? Is Judith saying something crazy again? Oh, hang on, let's go back.
Equity, inclusion, on the one hand, describes a program that sought to provide opportunity.
Oh, wait. ChatGPT, hang on, we'll get back to Judith in a second. ChatGPT, which I actually trust substantially more than I trust Reddit, ChatGPT says there are more men in cults than women. Oh my God. Oh my God. It's almost as if this was a stupid argument to get in to begin with, because we have someone that just wants men to be like the saviors of society and women to be blamed for everything, when in fact it kind of seems that that's not actually the case because they didn't refer to good evidence. All right, back to Judith saying something crazy.
For people of color who were traditionally excluded from different educational institutions and workplaces in order to create a more equal world. But of course, it now stands for anything that has to do with race for the right wing. So for instance, the same people who are saying, oh, in the university, they're going to tell you that the United States is systemically racist, or it's been racist since the beginning. It's always racist. Yep. It's pervasively racist.
They do say that, yep.
They're attacking that. They don't want that taught. So how do you do that? Well, you do it by making sure there are fewer people of color in the university, but also targeting race-based disciplines, programs, forms of research that are based on race. You claim that they're not neutral. You claim that they discriminate against white people. And now Trump is actually listening to the South African white supremacist movement that tells him that white people have been discriminated against in South Africa. And, in the Department of Justice, I believe they're starting to take down pictures of any black people who were ever, part of the history of that institution. So this is a racist project. It's not an opposition to a particular policy. It's a racist project. We're going to take race out of the schools. We're going to take race out of our public appearance. We're going to substitute white men when we can for everybody else. And we're going to stop the discrimination against white people.
Harmeet Dillon, who is a Hindu woman, just got confirmed to be the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights. A brown woman who I believe Harmeet was the daughter of immigrants. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure she was just confirmed to be the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights. And Judith Butler's like, white men are running the Justice Department. I mean, literally, white men are not running the Justice Department because Pam Bondi is not a man. Pam Bondi is very white. She is very blonde. I don't like her because she effed up the Epstein file release, and I don't trust her. But provably, she's not a man. And Harmeet Dillon, who is literally in charge of the Civil Rights Division, is a brown woman. But no, facts don't matter in the land of Judith Butler.
And their rightful place in the world. So I think of it as a white supremacist project, to tell you the truth.
Wow, Judith.
Maybe this is a redundant question because they've just won an election. But is it politically expedient? Like, because I'm constantly torn between saying, no, it's about the material conditions, it's about the price of groceries, it's about the price of gas, and it's about inflation. And look across incumbent governments and post-COVID inflationary pressure, incumbents have fallen, right? But particularly in the American instance, culture and culture war, I feel, is so intrinsically connected to the MAGA project that the reason I asked the question is because do you think that it generates political capital? Does it just serve to animate a base? Does someone genuinely say, when the price of eggs is what it is in America, no, do you know what, actually it's DEI programs? That's what I'm going to go to the polls over. You see what I'm asking? Maybe a better way of saying is, like, what is its political purpose?
Well, I think that, look, workers have a lot of resentment. Workers are really angry. They worked their whole lives. They thought they were going to have a good pension. They thought they were going to have job security. They thought they were going to be able to leave wealth to their children. And they're not able to do that. And they don't understand why. And they have to find reasons for that. So, you can say, well, look how capitalism is operating, and look at what's going on in your communities, who's profiting and who's not. Or you can say migrants and black people and brown people and coastal elites and gender ideologists are ruining our world.
Yeah.
And that everything will go back to the way it is. I think you have to, even a good materialist, economic analysis of
Marxism.
Worker discontent has to understand what the power is of that appeal to go back to the way things were, to restore stability, to restore hierarchy. You will be the man you've always been.
Yep.
You will be, you will get back what you earned. You will be wealthier with Trump.
True.
He will take down your taxes. He will help you to invest. You will be.
All right, Amy is new, so we're going to do the typical debunking conservative thing, which is we're going to explain to Amy why Judith Butler is allowed to profit from these things. No offense, Amy, but we've heard this debunk about 8,000 bajillion times. And we're going to make sure you never do this debunk again, because we're tired of hearing it. Why, pop quiz for the chat, why is Judith Butler allowed to profit from speaking and teaching in books? And why is it stupid for people to say, excuse me, socialist, do you know you're engaging in capitalism when you do these things? Because you're supposed to want to abolish capitalism. And so why are you engaging in capitalism? Pop quiz for the chat. Why are they allowed to? Bobby! Bobby, in for the win with the first correct answer. Bobby, I'm really proud of you for that. This is your first time being the first correct answer. Everyone congratulate Bobby for getting in ahead of all you slackers. Bobby says Marxists are allowed to work within a capitalist system to destroy it. That's exactly right. The Communist Manifesto says they can profit from capitalism because they are forced to live under it, and they need to profit to fight it. They are allowed to profit under capitalism. It says so in their documents. They live under capitalism. They have to survive under capitalism. As long as they are facilitating the revolution, it is perfectly fine for them to do this. Socialists are allowed to participate in capitalism. They use the profits to buy the guillotines for the billionaires. Yes, they do. Great job, Bobby. You guys know. You guys know. And now, Amy, you're never going to forget it. So you're still relatively new. You're still learning. We know that. We're not trying to make you feel bad. But you got to understand, we have heard that debunk about 8,000 times. And so my suggestion for you, the next time you feel the need to do a debunk in my chat, ask a question instead. Karlyn, how does Judith Butler justify making all this money under capitalism but being against it? That would have been a better way to go about it, and you wouldn't have gotten the debunk from the chat.
You won't be burdened by bureaucracies and regulations, and you won't be sitting back watching Black and brown people take jobs that you think you should have, right? So the resentment thing is huge, as is what I would call a furious nostalgia, just furious nostalgia. Like, I really want that back. I really want my place back. I really want the promise that I was working with back. And I mean, we would be foolish not to see that that's part of what's going on.
Do you know, I was going to ask you about nostalgia as an impulse and as a political tool, but I think you're right. It has that emotion attached to it, right? It is.
It's not just like sad and wistful. Oh, I wish things were different. No. It's we're gonna restore our rightful place. It's a restoration fantasy. We're gonna restore the order. We're gonna have white men on top again. We're gonna be free to hate, and nobody's gonna tell us that we're not allowed to say what we want to say about Black and brown people and women and gay and lesbian people, and those censors are going to be gone. We're going to be free. We're going to be exercising free speech along with Mr. Vance, truly free speech, which is not, encumbered or constrained by those leftist censors.
Yeah.
And now they've got state censorship. Now they're implementing state censorship as a way of freeing those from the censorship of the ostensible censorship of the left.
Free speech, as long as it agrees with my political ideology.
Yeah.
Trump
Judith Butler,
walked right into it.
Thank you so much for coming to speak to us again. I really appreciate it. Who's Afraid of Gender? The paperback. I'll hold it up for a second time. Do my best QVC impression.
We appreciate it too, Judith.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
We appreciated that too. That was a great interview. That was awesome. All right, guys. Well, it's getting to be around about the 8 o'clock hour, and so I think I am done. But that was a really great interview from Judith Butler, and I'm going to be making some clips of that interview because that was really great. As a reminder, if you would like to support the work I'm doing, please head over to my Substack. That is Karlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. You can access the full write-up of the Rethinking Schools webinar and all the clips that we watched last night for Spy Stream. You can get all the information about the Kickstarter campaign that is hosting a board game that literally wants to decapitate Trump. Lots of other great resources over on the Substack. And if you want to join us for movie nights on Sunday nights at 8 p.m., you have to head over there. I will be showing a movie this Sunday at 8 p.m., or rather, I told Jennifer what movie to show, because it is my month of narcissism in the movie night Discord. And during my month of narcissism, because for people who don't know, April is my birthday month. My birthday is April 12th. That is a Socialism Saturday. I want everyone to get their super chats ready for my birthday Socialism Saturday, because we're going to go all out. We're going to be watching Queer something. I'll tell you that right now. And because in my month of narcissism, which is April, I get to choose every movie that we show for movie night. We will be watching The Secretary this week, which is a classic BDSM Gnostic sex cult movie. And it is great. And it is awesome. And that's going to be on Sunday in the supporter Discord at 8 p.m. MacB also does a movie night on Monday in the supporter Discord, and I forget what MacB is showing because it's something obscure, but I think it's going to be great. Make sure you're heading over to the Substack, getting signed up, and joining us in the supporter Discord. How you join the supporter Discord is you go and you find the Digest newsletter, which I send out every Sunday. And you scroll all the way down to the bottom, and underneath this red box, you will find your perks. No, it's on my birthday. Bitchcraft is on my birthday, April 12th, because it's the second Sunday of the month. So no Bitchcraft tomorrow. It's the first Sunday, or Saturday. But next Saturday, not tomorrow, but the next one, will be my birthday. And you guys can all celebrate me and it's going to be great. So get signed up, come to movie night. We're going to watch some great movies this month, and it'll be awesome. All right, guys, that's all I have. I will be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. for Socialism Saturday. Please take care. Have a great rest of your night. We'll see you soon. Bye.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital.
That's difficult to answer.